So Miles had started making art, and he had an exhibit it was under a club that became a famous club for hip hop called The Tunnel. The Tunnel in New York had a gallery beneath it that Miles had a show. So Jean was supposed to meet up. I don't know what happened, couldn't find him, but me and another homie pulled up at the exhibit, and we was chilling there, and Miles was over there talking to people was coming up, paying homage, kissing the ring. So we on the other side of the room, and we checking them out, but we waiting for a minute to walk over. So I eventually go over and introduce myself and tell him he knew my dad and everything. So then he kind of opens up. He said, man, Miles got a crazy voice, his vocals. He's like, man, I saw you cats over there. I thought y'all was stick-up kids, man. I was ready looking for my joint. I said, oh, shit. Well, I realized it was not just the wall shit, it was hitting the trains, and then when cats doing walls met cats doing trains, they were like, oh, here's where we go to do trains. And
right.
And then
definitely.
guys was sharing info. Mm-hmm. So then it got more thorough citywide.
I can understand that.
Yeah,
anyway,
man.
these guys got great. This team is crazy.
Yeah.
Damn. That's beautiful.
They are the best. They're
No,
the best.
seriously, I'm
the
really
team
impressed.
is the best. We wouldn't be where we are in the industry
And we
without
just
them.
getting started.
We're just getting started, and it's just amazing. I'm super grateful. We always find ourselves back at stage one. You know what I mean? Where we're doing.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively, yeah.
Yes.
Always, when we started the podcast, that was stage one, of the podcast, and now we're where we are, and shit's getting crazy, and now we gotta take it to the next level.
How long you guys been doing this?
A little over a year.
Just hit a year.
Yeah, that's
just hit a year.
Y'all been going hard on. I didn't look at the dates, but I saw y'all got a gang of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great.
No, we're one of the things that Dills and I talked about before we set it up was we have to be consistent. Consistency is
very
key.
good. That's very good. Wow.
And just making sure that no matter whatever, if we didn't have a topic for the night, we're just gonna wing it. Mm-hmm. And just having Scotty and Ricky and Jay to kind of as they're like the best at doing that.
Yeah.
And when we created our segments, we have a sneaker segment, which we'll get into later. We got a segment where Jay spits a verse.
Like sneakers that we wear.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, but my guy on my team, Larry, he's like a sneaker expert.
Yeah.
When I first met Larry, he was online buying this and telling me I'm like,
that's
what?
me. That's him.
Yeah, that's
out there. He's deep into this shit.
Yeah, the cross section of hip hop, cannabis.
Hip hop is sneaker culture.
Love it.
There's no difference.
Yeah.
Hip hop is sneaker
That's
culture.
facts.
Without hip
So I'm
hop,
sure
there's
you
no
saw that
sneaker culture.
documentary,
Just for Kicks?
Just for Kicks,
An old one, right? Yeah.
I'm in that.
Yeah.
And French Cat was the filmmakers of like a buddy of mine, and I put them on the Grandmaster Caz.
Kaz is in there.
Who kills that?
Yeah.
He's a hardcore.
He's got all
sneakerhead.
the Air Force Ones in the background. Yeah.
But I learned, I knew about that store, Jew Man, which they get into.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit. And then to see the dude actually in the doc, the actual Jew Man, break down. He was the kid that really was like telling Nike, we need
the Air Forces.
They never promoted that sneaker at all.
Never. No advertising dollars.
It's
None.
crazy on the strength
They've
of
never spent any money. Probably recently they have, but up until that point, they never spent a dime
on Air Force
promotion of the Air
Force. It was
Force.
street culture that made that shoe super hot.
Funny enough, I brought an Air Force today.
You did?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For that reason, not the documentary, but just the New York, the roots behind it. Also, Air Force One got Baltimore roots, though. We can't forget about that.
Which one?
The Air Force One.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta break that down, Scotty.
What's up?
You gotta break that down.
Yeah.
The Baltimore roots.
I don't
Air
want
Force
to
One.
break that down without having the store's name and giving the proper due to it. We'll save that for another episode.
Oh, all right.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Cliffhanger.
Because that's a whole story. The whole Baltimore Air Force One thing.
Whoa,
Yeah.
So we are Stage One podcast, Stoop to Store, Legacy to Legal, and I am fucking so excited for today. Everybody give it up. We got Fat Fuck Freddy. And I will say,
Great to be here, by the way.
I will
fucking
say
legend. What true legend.
Without you, there would be no us, right? You're like the first hip hop journalist that really brought that into the pop culture landscape and bringing hip hop to the world. Back when
Tell 'em,
MTV
Mark.
used to play music videos.
Yeah.
You would host the hip hop portion of the day, which was
Yo MTV Raps.
MTV Raps, and what an amazing thing that was for me. I could just speak personally how important that was in like shaping my life, right? So I went into music. Hip hop was the music that spoke to me the most. I'm a producer. I ran a recording studio that predominantly serviced hip hop artists.
I heard about that. You had a studio for a long time.
Yeah.
To this.
And so for me, that being able to see that from that perspective, I'm from Albany, which is not far from New York City, but get it like we were there in lockstep in a lot of ways, but still like to be able to have that and see it and learn about these artists, that was amazing. So I definitely got to thank you for that part, because that fucking really had an impact on my life, and I know that it had an impact on millions of people. So I
appreciate
my
that.
introduction to hip hop was via Yo MTV Raps.
Wow.
No bullshit.
No bullshit. Yeah. So it's culturally like, what, and so a little explanation on why we decided to do the podcast was to make sure that culturally, where we come from, and as far as cannabis is represented, right? So
Absolutely.
it's a totally different landscape than the cultivators and the processors. Who, shout out to them, they're amazing. I love them all, but their aesthetic is slightly different because they're from rural areas. A lot of them, right? They're from. So a lot of the aesthetic of the entire cannabis culture in New York was being painted by this rural kind of farmer aesthetic in the beginning. It's
very true.
Something that I noticed, right?
Got it.
And as a culture creator in music, I said, oh, well, there's a lane right here that just needs to be filled by somebody and by something.
Yeah.
And it's one thing, like you could see it from dispensary to dispensary, because the people who got the dispensary licenses are all people who had weed charges, and a lot of that is from more of the urban landscape. So you get a lot more city people opening dispensaries, so that aesthetic exists in the stores, but it doesn't necessarily exist culture-wide, so in everywhere. So I felt like kind of creating a platform to do that was important, and having you on, being such a dominant force in cannabis as well as music, is like, I couldn't really honestly ask for a better bucket list situation. So,
well, I'm very happy to be here. I looked at a bunch of the podcasts you guys have done. I see how thorough, how knowledgeable, how well researched you guys are. And also, I think what you just mentioned about the cannabis culture developing in New York as it's now legal, that was a result, particularly of Crystal Peoples-Stokes, who's a Buffalo representative that put that language in the legislation that we have, fought to keep it in there.
Exactly.
And so now that we have this, New York now has the most people of color owning and operating dispensaries than anywhere else in the country. And so
we've talked about that on the pod a number of times. One of the things that we felt like the OCM got really right was making sure that the beginning licenses were all people of color. And if you look at it, like the independent licenses that came in and opened the first gang of stores, the first 100 stores.
Correct.
A lot of our dispensary. My partner isn't on the podcast right now, Nate, but Nate is black. My wife is Dominican. So we are 50% women owned, 50% people of color owned. So we are in that group of people who got to actually get into the culture and the legal side of it early, and create something of long-lasting importance. And so we really took that seriously.
I see.
That's why we're doing the podcast.
Yeah.
We're not clout chasing. We just are trying to push the culture forward in a way that speaks to everyone. So we have all of the processors and growers on episodes. They are here. They're representing. They show love. We love them. But also we've had a lot of hip hop guests as well, rappers that have been on that really are a part of that. For me, it's just important because they taught me about it. That's how I learned about about weed, was through that lens first, right? And then I did my research and learned a lot about it from other perspectives. But so that part of the culture just always is going to speak to me, and to be able to speak for that and get you on here, because let's talk about your brand, right? You got we'll start off there.
Well, yeah. So the Be Noble brand, which is an amazing story for me, kind of grew out of a film I made about 5 years ago, a film called Grass is Greener, a documentary on the history of cannabis.
Definitely go watch that. It's amazing.
Yeah, if you guys paid your Netflix bill, Grass is Greener is sitting.
Go steal your friend's password.
Yeah, get your buddy's password.
It's
tell
great.
your homie to give it up. So basically, once again, I grew up. Cannabis has been a part of my life, damn near all of my life. My dad as well. You get a snapshot of this in the movie, and I knew from a kid that there was this jazz connection, that there were songs made about cannabis in the 1930s, believe it or not, by some of the top jazz people at that time. So I was like, wait a minute. And then a lot of the biggest hip hop people got their first national television audience next to me on Yo MTV Rap, Snoop Dogg, Method Man and the Wu-Tang, Cypress Hill, A to Z. I was like, wow, this would be a great way to tell the story, showing this musical history from jazz to hip hop, but then also looking at the criminal justice dynamic. So that was the motivation. And then the case that I picked to focus on for the criminal justice narrative was a brother named Bernard Noble that had been given a 13-year sentence for 2 joints worth of cannabis. And I realized and learned that this was something typically going on in a bunch of southern states.
And the Louisiana connection is crazy, because that in the film you talk a lot about how that's the kind of gateway for cannabis into the United States in the early days of jazz, because the jazz musicians.
Yeah, so the jazz musicians were the architects of American cool, literally, and alternative lifestyle, if you will. And you had extreme racism going on at that time when jazz was being formulated. And so in New Orleans, which does allow people to come together and mix a bit and enjoy this music, cannabis was percolating there. And as the musicians traveled here, there, and everywhere, cannabis would go along for the ride. And then Louis Armstrong, who was one of the architects of jazz music, one of the greatest that ever did it, was a huge everyday cannabis aficionado who used to refer to it as his golden leaf. And a buddy of mine, Steve Hager, that was the editor of High Times back in the days that put all the hip hop people on the cover, he has a theory that the golden leaf was clearly like a very cultivated plant for the flower, which was golden and had a high THC content. So there was a connect that he feels Louis had in New Orleans, that he got strain. That on the regular. If I could only get one of them seeds and bring it back to life, let's hit the Louis Armstrong archive and see and get some geneticists.
That really was amazing. When the part where he talks about getting arrested and then saying,
Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, Louis Armstrong. Right. And then saying, I'm not going on the road anymore if you can't give me a permit.
So that was a letter to his then manager, who actually had been a gangster, and that was Louis' longtime manager. And he was basically saying, listen, people can get a permit for a gun. I should be able to get a permit for this plant I like to smoke, because people were messing with him, which makes so much sense.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And so that was part of the struggle, and he was one of the high-profile advocates of cannabis at that time. So it was all a lot of stuff. And then there was another interesting guy that I get to shine light on that my dad and his friends had actually brought weed from, a guy by the name of Mez Mesereau. This was a white Jewish cat, clarinet player, beloved in the Black Harlem jazz community, who was super into the weed. And that's right, a part of what I just told you about the Louis Armstrong gold leaf connection, apparently this is what Mez Mesereau had. He was referred to as the Mighty Mez. There's a record, Dreamed About a Reefer, 5 feet long, the Mighty Mez, but not too strong. I get into all this in the movie. Yeah. His weed was so good that the term for good weed was, that's that Mez. Y'all smoking over there. His shit was that on point. And so that was another interesting little factoid.
And you got Branson on, who was
a homie, a really good friend of mine. Yeah, Branson's my buddy. Well, it was like twisting his arm. I'm saying, Branson, I'm going to make this film. I'm going to get into this whole history. I said, Branson, inadvertently, you created a brand without really understanding what a brand really is. It was just like a Harlem street hustler thing that goes back into the 70s heroin days. Guys began to label their product and do something really unique to make them stand out.
Yeah.
Part of what Branson did, he was one of the first street guys that had a good Cali connection. Most of us were still smoking Colombian, Mexican, Jamaican. We had to bring the stems out,
bricks,
clean the seeds on the album.
Out of it.
And along that line, I brought something on some show and tell shit, because I've been around for a while. I go back like rocking chairs, literally. And when I was coming up in the 70s, we used to get, there was nickel bags and tray bags, a $5 bag and a $3 bag. What they came in back then, I made up one of these, took a manila envelope and made it. This is what a $5 bag looked like back in the days. This is what weed came in all over New York City. In this paper bag, you would, in this little manila, you would bust it open, get the cleaning the seeds, taking the stems out, and try to see how many joints, you know, like if you can get 8 joints out of a nickel bag, that was a good count.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's the era I grew up in, where weed was dried out. People didn't know
And it was always different.
Motherfuckers are now. Like,
well, no, but it's essential, because as you understand weed now, you want to keep the plant, preserve it, so you don't want to let it dry out because of potency. But this is typically what it was.
Terpenes
It
are
looked
the
like
most
told me about that
volatile.
all the time from back in the day.
One more time?
I've heard those stories about those bags from my
Yeah,
dad.
any
so
old
many
heads in
times.
your
always just
family,
talk about
your
tray
uncle, mom, if
envelopes.
she was around in the 70s making moves, this is what the weed came in. This was a nickel bag, and a tray bag was like about less than half of that.
That's crazy.
That was $3. And then they sold loose joints, which was $1, which oftentimes had seeds and whatever, and then you'd be smoking a joint, it'd be popping. And seeds would drop fire, would have little holes all in your clothes. That was a thing typical of the weed heads from back in the day.
And I love that you made it yourself, because that just shows, like, back in the days, if you ain't having a little
Well, after
bags,
I looked at some of the episodes, I saw how deep y'all get. I said, okay, I'm gonna show these cats, because when I bring this up, like, are you aware? So when Branson was doing his product, going back into the early 90s, things changed over the years, and then guys got hip to various size of the little plastic baggies, and that was typically how you got your weed. But what Branson did that made it his bag really unique, he had a friend that had a connection to a Chinese factory. So Branson and his factory made little plastic bags. Branson said, can you make me a triangle plastic bag? And they made, he bought one huge order of these triangular plastic bags. There's a clip of Red Man that went viral a couple of years ago.
On TV Cribs.
Not Cribs, after Cribs, but Red Man's mom finds a bunch of reefer bags in some old pants he had, and he's doing a little video, and he was like, this one there, that's that Branson. And his mom is talking about putting it on eBay. He's like, no, Mom, we ain't gonna do that. But you get to see the triangle bag, and that's part of what made Branson stand out, along with having a consistent Cali connect, which didn't exist, particularly in the hood. And then at that time in the 90s, as hip hop was escalating and elevating, a lot of the dopest rappers that had a few dollars was like, yo, we can go up to Harlem to this cat Branson and get that fire, then hit the studio and make hit records. So that became a big part of Branson's clientele, and more than 60 cats shouted out, I got to go uptown and get that Branson, get a jar from Branson. Now, only those really initiated knew what that was really meaning. They was going up to get that fire weed.
On 123rd Street.
Well, no, 123rd Street, that was another old school story. That was a block in Harlem that sold what was called Chunky Black. So that was on 123rd Street. But Branson was around in that era. We mentioned that in the movie, but he had a shop on St. Nicholas in the 150s. It was called the Sugar Bowl. And that was Branson's dispensary, if you will.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Which was damn near open 24/7. And if you knew what time it was, you can pull up and get a 20, a 50 of that fire.
Man,
that's crazy.
So we tell his story in the movie Grass is Green.
What was the strains that really he was messing with back then, Branson? Like,
that's a good question.
What had everybody in the chokehold? Like,
that's a good question. I mean, at that time, I think most New York street people buying cannabis from a guy like Branson, they didn't know the difference. They just knew this is fire. In those days, you got what your connect had. You just hoped it was good. Branson consistently had something far and above what everybody else had, because once again, those good strains were not yet massively in the streets. It was Mexican, it was Colombian, and it was Jamaican, and not always that level of that consistently happened. But that also was a reflection of guys breeding and doing amazing things up in those Humboldt Hills, really coming together, bringing various Afghani this and Hawaiian that, and crossing and creating vibrant strains which had fire, head and high yields, and all those things began to really develop.
Yeah, I feel like people didn't start caring about the strains until like this haze and sour came along.
Exactly.
Like that's when like it became about what is this,
Exactly.
And I remember early on though, it was just like, oh, this is just good weed.
Did you know? Were you in on the sour stuff back in the like you were tapped into the weed business, and sour is like New York, is like a New York strain. Did you like?
So because, and even going way back to when I first was getting connected with the game, when I connected with people on the downtown underground culture scene in New York, like Chris Stein and Debbie Harry from the group Blondie that I did a good collaboration with, they were getting this fire California weed at that time. I mean, just to see green weed looked like that's wrong. The weed is supposed to be brown or maybe gold if you were lucky. Green, and then you twisted that up, your head was blown. Yeah. So I had access early on, but Branson was the cat that kind of introduced it to the street en masse. Then you began to hear guys talk about sour diesel, purple haze, and I was skeptical if this really was what they said it was. But apparently now that I've talked to cats that were actually cultivating some of those strains, yes, it was rampant. Some cats was obviously just using the hot name that they knew
to sell what they had.
To sell what they had.
Get people's ear. Oh, you got that, but there was no way of really knowing because we had no real official. The education wasn't there, and guys didn't consistently, have access to those strains where you can legit say, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. One of the first of those exotic strains I remember getting access to, I think, was like White Widow. Remember hearing about that strain? And then I knew guys at High Times, so they would have all that stuff. You'd open the magazine and be like, man, look at this weed. It's incredible. Where is this shit? So
first you probably had access to a lot of weed that a lot of other people weren't getting access to.
Once again, knowing these guys on the scene, they were some of the first guys getting it that had good Cali connections. And but that was a very rare situation from the 80s. But then into the 90s, it began sour diesel, haze, which was originally purple haze, but those things began to get popular.
Yeah, there's a lot of different haze varietals, but the one that always was a big part of my cannabis journey was the stuff in Washington Heights that you get up on in 170, and there was like a lot of different spots, and it was all like similar, and then there was like that very specific terpene profile, tasted the same every time.
Yeah, so there was one cat that was the major grower and supplier who I've met. He's now moving into the legal game. I don't know the name of his actual brand, but he was the cat that was producing most of that.
Yeah.
And so I've met him now, and he's one of those legacy guys that now is like Legacy to Legal, telling those stories. And I'm like, oh, that was you. Oh, wow. He's like, oh, man, I was doing this. I was moving many pounds from here to there to whatever. So that was a fascinating story, as these guys can now step up and, tell their stories, and then hopefully find a way to get into the market. So I just want to share a little bit. So back to the Branson story. He was reluctant because he's a classic New York, Harlem hustler, no talking, no stories, not like 90% of these guys do now. They're on different podcasts telling everything.
Yeah. He's elusive.
Getting hit with major RICO cases. If you tapped in on the internet, I know you know what I'm talking about. Branson's from that school of no talking. You feel me? Real gangsters, real hustlers moving silent. But I explained to him, yo, Branson, I'm about to blow this game open. I'm going to lay this thing out. I'm going to put your story in here. And I know eventually New York is going to go legal, and I'm going to meet people and hopefully get a brand going for you. So that was my motivation. So I started working on that, but then Branson started having conversations with Burner from Cookies, because he's, Burner's also in Grass is Greener. So eventually they set something up on that tip, so I was like, all good. And then I had the idea to do something around this brother featured in my film, Bernard Noble, who you see him walk out of prison after serving 7 years of a 13-year sentence, 2 joints with the weed. I was so moved by this guy. I said, man, I don't know what's going on in there. He said there's people in there with as much time or more than he had for even less weed than 2 joints worth. I was like shocked to hear that. And shortly after, I got motivated to start this brand. I got with my business partner, this cat named Ron, who was a brother from Cali that was deep, moved packs all over the country, had grows in Humboldt and everything. He knows this thing inside out. I said, let's do something, create a brand in this brother's name, let's call it Be Noble, and let's give some of our revenue to organizations helping people that's been, caught up in the game and they coming home from prison. So Curaleaf heard our pitch. We weren't even really pitching them, but Curaleaf stepped up and said, man, we love what this is. We would love to work with you. We were able to structure an equitable deal. And in 2001, July, we hit the shelves, and we're in 8 states now, but really excited to see what's going on in our home state of New York. So I'm ready to go hard and share these stories with heads like y'all.
That's awesome,
Speaking
man.
of stories, you have been around so many legendary people, and I'm sure you've been a part of so many legendary smoking sessions. Do you have any stories that you're willing to tell today?
Oh, yeah, shit. Let me see. Legendary smoking sessions?
Yeah.
Well, I like to tell you about smoking with Notorious B.I.G.
Ooh, let's go.
Which was insane to me, because I'm sure you guys know there's some people that can
What a flex.
literally chain smoke like blunts.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not that kind of cat. If it's fire, I'm gonna take 4 or 5 hits. I'm gonna sit it down for a minute.
That's
I'm
what
gonna
I've been
take
doing
4 or
the whole
5
time.
more hits, and that's how I smoke. Yo, Biggie was blunt after blunt after blunt, and when you with the homies, the blunts is going around, and I'm just like, wait, I hit them shits one too many times. They'll be like, yo, like, but that's how Biggie smoked
For
on a
sure.
regular,
Word.
nonstop. He was almost chain smoking blunts. Great
can
dude.
imagine.
I really miss him. Yeah.
Like Snoop. They say Snoop.
Of
like
course,
that too.
Snoop. The moment in my movie when I'm interviewing Snoop, and he's like, hey, Fab, I want you to hit that. And then I was like, oh yeah, let me take a hit. And literally cough up a lung. And Snoop sitting back. That's what I wanted to hear. I was waiting for it. And then he's like, that's the sound of the, and like, I'm literally.
Is he got like hash infused? He's gotta have like hash. He gotta be smoking
I
all
don't think it was infused.
shit, no?
It wasn't infused. It was just some super
Some gas.
duper gassy, top shelf, the Kona Bud, the best of the video. I was like, oh my God, it was insane.
Yeah, no,
His
that's
brand at that time was really super high end. He had like really well wrapped kind of blunts with glass tips. It came in a wooden. But I don't know if that particular brand is still popping, but that's what he hit me with. And like I gave up a lung.
I believe it. I see you had Damian Marley in there. Do you ever get to smoke with him?
No, I didn't smoke with Damien, but I did a lot of work in Jamaica. A part of what I did, which developed just as UMTV Raps happened, I directed a lot of music videos. I think you went on and saw it.
I got the list.
And so I directed most of Shaba's videos, Shaba Rank.
Yep.
So about
Yeah.
5.
Lover Man.
Yes,
Shabba.
I did Mr. Lover Man, Trailer Load of Girls, a gang of them. So I would be in Jamaica and then learn that at the times when I was hitting it hard at that time in the 90s, the best weed in Jamaica was in Negril. And then I hooked up with some rosters that took me up into the hills and showed me the real deal feels. And then I puffed with those dudes out of they call it like a chillum, AKA a chalice, which actually originates in India. So a lot of people don't know how indigenous cannabis is to Indian culture. And when they migrated to Jamaica, they brought some of their foods and some of their ways of dealing with the cannabis. So that pipe originates. So I blazed
Even the
with
word
that.
ganja. Ganja.
Correct.
From
Yeah,
there.
ganja is originally an Indian word. So I smoked up in them hills. Once again, gave up another lung.
Right. Probably more than one, if anything.
Like those dudes would literally puff and be in a cloud. I'd be like, dude, that's insane. They would disappear.
Yeah, so the whole Rastafari culture is like it's one of its own. It's great. We had there's a grower from a company called Hepworth who's a straight Rastafari.
Right.
Named Michael. We had him on as a guest, and he was really digging into that whole cultural aspect. So that was like totally kind of a big part of the culture, right? The smoking and being one with the earth and being out there and the outside.
It's literally like looked at by real Rastas. It's a religious sacrament.
Yeah.
And they're now looking to get a piece of the business, which is legalized in their island in Jamaica. So when I went to Jamaica to film, I got to interview talk to Bunny Wailer. He's in my film, and went up that mountain, that place, that location where I'm at was one of the first Rasta settlements on the island. And so, so that was really special, spending time in Jamaica and blaze with those cats.
Yeah, it's just a whole different cultural side of cannabis, which is that you got to immerse yourself in.
And then literally, it's probably like maybe close to 45 years ago that Peter Tosh made Legalize It, which is one of the first great cannabis songs that literally was like, listed different medical benefits of the plant at that time. Once again, like these great roots, people from various cultures that are tapped in to plant culture and the science of plant medicine. He was right and way ahead of the curve. So to be able to listen to that record now, just realize that's 45 years ago.
Yeah, 45 years ago. At talking the science behind the medicinal benefits, it's like that brings me to the report, the LaGuardia report, right?
Wait, before we go there though, I just want to circle back to the music videos because I want to highlight.
Okay,
I got the list here.
Okay.
And then I want to So I
directed a lot of videos, y'all. A
Yo,
lot of people don't know.
but
my mind was
This shit is
blown
crazy.
when I found all this.
Crazy.
Yeah.
We were talking about it yesterday.
So we got Nas, One Love.
Yep.
Snoop, What's My Name.
Yep.
So I want to just stop there for a second. So
Sure.
he's the man who turned Snoop Dogg into a dog.
I did.
This is him right here, y'all. Like, come
Wow.
on. Now, he put the dog in Snoop
Bow
Dogg.
wow
Come
wow.
on, man.
Yippee-yo, yippee-yay. Yeah, no, that was
That
fun.
was crazy.
Yeah.
Then
I
we
remember
got,
seeing that and my mind being blown too as a kid.
right. Especially for back then, that time, like, we didn't have all this type of video effects
CGI
that we
shit,
have,
yeah.
now.
That was
So
creative
to be
shit.
able to make those connections visually at that time
Briefly,
was
Dre
amazing.
was like, I put NWA on TV the first time, introduced him to the country, so I had a good relationship with Dr. Dre, and he'd seen other videos I did and asked me would I direct Snoop's first video. But he said he had two songs ready, that song, What's My Name, and Gin and Juice. And I was like, oh my God, it's Gin and Juice. Come on, Dre. He was like, no, I don't want to go with that one first. I want to introduce Snoop with something that he wanted to have. It wanted it to have a comic feel. I was like, really? But this is Dr. Dre now. This is a genius at work. So he says, yeah, Fab, see if you can put some kind of animation into it or something funny. I was like, animation? I don't want to do that. But Michael Jackson had recently did a video, I think it was Black or White, which was the first video to use this morphing technology. And this video cost millions. I had a decent budget, and I reached out to some serious advanced tech friends to see if they could connect me with somebody that would basically had those technical skills, but that would show me some love on the budget.
Yeah.
And they connected me with this great production company. Sadly, I can't remember the name. They created the morphs of Snoop and the dog pound turning into a dog. But what blew my mind and showed how it was meant to be, these guys were like, wait a minute, Fab. This song is built on George Clinton's Atomic Dog. I said, yeah. Well, there was a video for Atomic Dog, and there was a little animation in the video of George Atomic Dog. You pull it up on YouTube, the George Clinton Atomic Dog. This company did the animation for Atomic Dog back in the 80s, I guess.
Wow.
Now they were doing digital stuff on the next level tip, so it was like a perfect story that
Full circle.
that whole full circle, like who knew?
That's amazing.
And so they gave, and I did those.
Serendipitous shit.
Sadly, there was one major morph I never got to create because the whole murder case that Snoop got caught up in, murder was the case as it's referred to, went down. So I wasn't able to finish shooting. Had to get back to New York. But the video turned out okay, I'm happy to say.
Yeah,
classic.
Classic.
It's a classic.
Classic.
So then now we got Queen Latifah, Ladies First.
Yeah, I did Ladies First and Dance for Me, and also I was instrumental in getting Queen Latifah signed to Tommy Boy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I happened to be hanging out. Sadly, rest in peace. DJ Mark, the 45 King, was a good friend, and he would have the Flavor Unit, these MCs, many of which broke out and emerged. Double J, Lakim Shabazz, Apache. But this female was there one day, and I was like, dude, who's this chick? Because she was rapping and then doing a reggae thing, and I was always into reggae. I said, yo, who's she? Mark's like, I don't know, it's a new chick. So I played it for some people at Tommy Boy, and they signed Latifah, so I got to direct her first 2 videos. That was fun.
That's amazing.
That was fun.
So crazy. And you think about all the stuff that she went on to do in her
career.
Really
proud of her. She definitely did her thing.
Holy
she's
shit,
still incredible. Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Super proud to see
Superstar.
her.
She's like still out there doing TV shows, fucking
Yeah,
acting.
yeah.
Like,
She's
Let me tell you something about
superstar,
Latifah.
like-
This was something I also saw in Will Smith early on. They would start joking around, just hanging out, shooting this shit. And she would start doing different characters. Like any of us got a homie that'll imitate a different person.
Yeah.
And I seen Will Smith do this too early on. But she would do it and stay in these characters, like an Indian person from India. And she was like, doing the whole accent. But she would stay with it so much. I was like, damn. And so that translated well to her being able to play other characters as well as Will Smith.
Like
he used to do the
it.
same shit. He'd
Yeah.
be goofing around, but he would go so hard with it. Interesting way to spot a potential actor.
Yeah.
It's got friends that goof around a lot.
Nah, for sure. It's crazy too how I feel like you had that ability to spot people and place them where they needed to be.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, well, also a lot of that with the video was I was lucky enough to get great music and song to direct, because I directed over 60 videos through that Yo MTV Raps period. And I was lucky, like the first video I directed was My Philosophy for KRS-One, which turned out well. The second one was Strictly Business for EPMD. That was okay. And then I knew I had to step my game up. I had to get the right crew, and you had to hire the team to make it right. And then the third video I did was Talking All That Jazz for Stetson Sonic, which I knew I killed that one. So then I had figured out enough stuff to just try to kill everyone. And then, like I said, lucky to get good songs a lot of times. Because I've done videos for artists. If I realized at a certain point, oh my God, the song it's whack. And no matter what I do with this video, it's not making that music any better. So I realized how lucky I was that I got a lot of great songs.
Sure.
It was a blessing.
You said a couple of the ones I got on my list, but I want to bring one up specifically because this one I feel like was very pivotal just for not even just hip hop culture, but just culture, because we need this type of art, and that's the Erase Racism.
Oh boy. Yeah, Erase Racism was a video for Cool G Rap that featured Biz Markie. It was a black kid was murdered in a part of Brooklyn, Queens called Howard Beach, which was a very high-profile case in New York back then. And it was just something that was in the air, very strong. And G-Rap wanted to make a song that addressed that, so Erase Racism. It's funny, I was on the phone with G-Rap recently. We hadn't talked to each other in a bunch of years, so we had a nice catch-up call, and we was talking about that video. And in his mind, he thought I went to Howard Beach in Queens and shot it, which was not the thing we were ever going to do. Those white boys out there was rough and really crazy. It was wild. What I did was I found an area in Jersey that had that feel. I got actors to be like those tough white guys that lived in that area. And basically what I did in the video was bring everybody together, black and white. And Biz had this hook, the page is white. No, the ink is black, the page is white. Together we learn to read and write. And anyway, that was the thing, the whole coming together. So it worked, but I didn't even correct G-Rap. In his mind, we shot that video in Howard Beach. And that's the magic of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because no, G-Rap, I didn't want to tell him, but I'm like, dude, no, that was shot in Jersey. But in his mind, it's Howard Beach. So that means I did a good job.
That's
Thank
art.
you. Erase Racism, go to YouTube, Cool G Rap, it's all right there.
For
a few
sure.
clicks away.
That's a fact. Check it out. It's worth it.
Yeah.
I did my research. I've been studying the past couple weeks, and
Thank you.
Yeah,
man.
we've been
it
talking
was a
about
blessing.
you, man.
I did mad
saying-
videos. I tell you, so one of my favorites, which I got to do, because filmmaking is a big part of me. I haven't done a feature, but I will. But I like to use these music videos as a part of film school, but also a way to tell stories. So a lot of my best videos, I feel, were narratives. I had a narrative in the One Love video for Nas, but that song, the structure of that song is he's writing letters to his friends that's in prison. And so I just depicted those scenes. Another one I did that I was proud of is for Gangstar, Just to Get a Rep, about a stick-up kid.
Yep.
And that was a hustle that was pretty prevalent, unfortunately, in New York back in the days. Kids' hustle was robbing you, taking your shit, your sneakers, your gold, your money if you had any. So that video was all about that. And I played that, you know, once again, very low budget, but I was like, oh, I know this shit backwards and forwards.
the message though is it shows.
The message
You don't need
is
a
there.
budget for that.
So when did you and how did you decide, like, all right, I'm gonna shoot videos and be a video director, and this is like my path forward in the game, and like what gave you that confidence to be like, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is the guy I'm gonna be?
Good question. So, first of all, having the idea that becomes the movie Wild Style, and then we get that movie made is miraculous.
Right.
But I learned filmmaking in that process, classic low budget independent filmmaking. So I'm basically a visual artist. My story originates with me having been a graffiti artist that spray painted and wrote my name anywhere I felt it needed to be. That was something going on in New York at the time. But then I graduated and began to think of myself as a visual artist that wanted to take those skills and techniques into galleries, put it on canvas, to the museums and all that. So I started formulating a way to make those moves. That's when I connect with the homie Jean-Michel Basquiat. Same age, same background, we both trying to do the same thing. So we become homies. Keith Haring hits the scene, same time, he's trying to figure it out. So we all are like a crew. Okay, boom. So I'm making paintings, I'm exhibiting the work, galleries, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm like, okay, the painting thing is dope. Still love it passionately, but I want to do something else too. And so I was like, man, I learned filmmaking. Now this is before Yo MTV Raps. I'm like, music videos. And so Public Enemy's first album had come out, and I was lobbying them to try to let me direct a video for one of those songs from Bum Rush, the show, but that doesn't happen. But the person from Jive Records hears about me wanting to direct a Public Enemy video, and he said, oh, you'd be perfect to direct a video for KRS-One, which became My Philosophy. So that's how that happened, basically. I mean, was painting, wanted to just still painting.
Step out
a little bit.
And do something that's different visually.
Yeah, I think for Jean-Michel and I, when we were coming up and became super tight and had similar interests, similar ideas, we basically were like Malcolm X, by any means necessary. If it's music, if it's acting, if it's, you know, making art, we was gonna do all of this or any of this because we was like, why not? You feel me?
Right.
Like Jean, had he lived longer, he would have made more music, would have made more films. Jean produced a rap record. Of course, I turned him on to rap. He didn't know nothing about it.
Yeah.
But when I bought the early tapes, he was like, oh man, this shit is dope. He turns around and takes this kid who was a protege of mine, Ramel Z, into the studio.
Wow.
And another kid named
I didn't know that.
K-Rock, who was a young,
I didn't know
aspiring
that.
graffiti kid.
That's
He
crazy.
produces this record called Beat Bop. Just cause I could do that too. And I was like, yo, John, that's an ill record. You know, Cat, at this time in rap, Cats was rapping, there was no verse, hook, verse. It was Cats would just rap for 20 minutes.
Just
You
bars.
know, just rap, just bars after bars after bars.
Everything I want to ask him about, he's just talking about it. Right? Like, literally, I have so many questions about that. Did you know Jean was gonna be what he became? Like, obviously, you knew he wasn't gonna be like what he is right now. But
yeah, no, it's
did
crazy.
you know he was gonna be
nobody. I mean, we was both in sync with making moves, and we both realized that downtown scene, those wild new wave punk rock people were open to a lot of different shit. So what I had thought was, damn, if I can get at some of those people and spit these ideas, it was all theoretical. that I saw a connection between the energy of graffiti and the beginning of rap as having a similar rebellious energy to what punk rock and new wave was about. They was going against old rock that had got corny and on some rock star shit like Rolling Stones and all these bands was not the raw, rough, gritty stuff that they were in the beginning. So punk rock was a reaction to that. And I saw the rebelliousness in that. And I thought, man, that's interesting. These cats is doing interviews talking about, I can't even play my guitar, I'm just making noise. I was like, yo, that shit is wow. So if that's going, if I could get at some of these people that's in charge and break down something that I see going on, maybe they might listen. And they did. And connecting with people on that downtown scene, particularly Chris and Debbie from Blondie, I'd be in their ear, hanging out, breaking down this new, playing early hip hop tapes, telling them there's fly guys and there's fly girls, and Flash is the DJ, he's fast. I had no idea they was gonna go and make a record and basically reinterpret what I told her. Freddy told me everybody's fly, Flash is fast. I'm like, and then she put some goofy shit in. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I can't. The funny story is, we were super tight, right? So we was hanging out with them. I'm like, I can't believe I'm hanging with them. And they was mad cool, a lot of love. So they went off and recorded the album. They called me up and said, come by. We got our new album. So I'm like, whoa. So they played me a couple of cuts. And then they put this other song on. And I swear, I think they was just in the studio goofing and added this rap to this song. Because Debbie sounded like, this ain't no real rap, but it was so flattering, like, oh shit, this is shit I told her. Plus I had a little rhyme about, I was born and raised on the planet Mars, where I used to chill and rock with the stars. One day I got bored and decided to split. I came to Earth on a rocket, some shit. I had a handful of rhymes to get on the mic at a block party, to let the ladies see, I'm here, baby. Holla at me, But she put the shit on the record. So I'm thinking it's just a goof. I'm so flattered. I'm overwhelmed that they really heard everything I was saying. But I thought, once again, this ain't a real record. My dude, I'm in Paris like a month later on some art show, having one of my first art shows. I'm in Paris making moves. I'm in a taxi cab. I hear the record come on the radio. I don't know. I'm thinking, I'm with these other two people. I said, yo, how they get my people's record? Like, this is a song. Like, I thought this is a tape.
You think it's a demo. You're like, it's a demo. Shit. They gotta have it in this demo.
I'm like, how did this demo? The dude says, yo, Fab, that's the new Blondie single. I was like, what? So that's how I learned that it was a real record that they played for me, my dude, and the shit went on to be #1. You can't make this shit up.
You can't make this shit up.
It's crazy. Like, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
The cultural impact, though, that you had just being around, being the coolest guy in New York City, right?
But anyway, Chris Stein was a super duper weed aficionado, and a great part about hanging with them, he had a job with like a big job, like a mason job, boy. We could always be full with that crazy Cali, boy. He would bust them buds out. And I'd be like, this is amazing. And we'd smoke that good weed. I'd ride that train home to Brooklyn, like, So that was a big, that was an incredible time for me. I'm really blessed to have experienced all of that.
That shit dope.
You said a key word, stick up kids. I'm glad that you said that and broke down what that is.
Yeah.
Because I heard you tell a story about the first time you met Miles Davis.
Yes. Jean-Michel was supposed to have been with me that day. Of course, big Miles Davis fans. And the fact that Miles, and my dad was a part of that era. My dad knew Miles. Max Roach is my godfather. So that whole bebop era from the 40s into the 50s, like I grew up, like my dad played that music all the time. That was their era. But Miles was able to change his whole style, dress, music, and everything into what became known as jazz rock, if you will. My dad wasn't with that, but we thought that was cool that he could transition and grow and advance as a musician. So Jean-Michel and I would talk about Miles, how cool he was for doing that. So Miles had started making art, and he had an exhibit it was under a club that became a famous club for hip hop called the Tunnel. The Tunnel in New York had a gallery beneath it that Miles had a show. So Jean was supposed to meet up. I don't know what happened, couldn't find him, but me and another homie pulled up at the exhibit, and we was chilling there, and Miles was over there talking to people was coming up, paying homage, kissing the ring. So we on the other side of the room, and we checking him out, but we waiting for a minute to walk over. So I eventually go over and introduce myself and tell him he knew my dad and everything. So then he kind of opens up. He said, man, Miles got a crazy voice, his vocals. He's like, man, I saw you cats over there. I thought y'all was stick-up kids, man. I was ready looking for my joint. I said, oh, okay, Phil, we probably did, because, you know, me and my man, we over there just glancing at him. So that was an incredible encounter. But I'll tell you another great story about Miles Davis. The last record he worked on, which was released posthumously, was a hip-hop jazz record called Doo-Bop, produced by Easy Mo B. So Miles would have went on to play in hip-hop a little more, because he was figuring out his own way to do his thing in these new genres.
Imagine that.
And that was something that was just always resonates with me, like how much more that he would have went on to do. And then another little story that's not out there, I'm really tight with Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest. They had reached out to him to produce that record. But he was caught up producing one of the Tribe records that would go on to be one of the great classics. But the Miles Davis team and Miles had got at him to get him to come in and work, because he saw this cat Q-Tip. People would tell him, oh, these cats now is inspired by this jazz thing too. And so Miles was open. So
yeah, two things off of what you just said.
Sure.
One is I actually was privy to get to see Easy Mo B's record collection, because having a hip hop background, one of the projects that I was doing back at college, the guy in the group with me lived in the town that Easy Mo B was living in, like Mayapack or whatever. And then he had heard about this kid that was rapping, and he invited us over to play beats and shit. And I got to hear like Easy Mo B beats, which was another one of those bucket list moments where I'm like, damn, Easy Mo B is playing me beats. Like, this is insane. And I got to see his
first
record.
album is practically
Easy Mo B. I got to see his record collection, which was awesome. And then another thing is I saw this clip of fucking Q-Tip like looping a jazz record on the record player, not doing it as a sample, like in the studio with Kanye actually.
Wow.
And he was like showing Kanye, and he was like, it would be cool if we made this beat like this, and he's just like looping the vinyl, like if we just recorded me doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
He's just bringing the like on beat. Bringing the fucking loop back on a vinyl live, just with the fucking needle, just moving the needle. Like, that's how good a producer fucking Q-Tip is. So, both amazing producers.
Low key, Q-Tip has been working on a project. I shouldn't really drop it, but anyway, what the hell? The Miles Davis people got at him to basically do remixes on the catalog of Miles's music from the electric era. Oh my God. So keep in mind, I'm hoping I'm gonna hit him up now and say, yo, like, what's up with that tip? Like, when can we hear something?
Yeah,
but I thought, what a genius idea to just,
sure.
the remix, if you will, and bring out some of that and put some of that Q-Tip flavor in there would be super dope. You know?
Speaking of amazing producers, your cousin is Salam Remy.
Yeah, Salam Remy's a cousin. So
that blew my mind when I found that out.
Yeah, like through marriage, it's distant, but it really brought us together. And his dad, Van Gibb, I knew, used to live in the same building. One day, me and Van Gibb was chopping it up, and then we was talking about Barbados. And although I'm born here as well as my parents, my grandparents on both sides were from the island of Barbados. And I'm like, wait a minute, man, when we come around and turn around, like my great grandmother was Gibbs. As you know, and through marriage we connect. So me and Salam got tight, and then when we were getting Grass is Greener finished, the film, we didn't have a super duper budget to really get the kind of music I knew I needed. So I'm trying to figure out a way I'm like, yo, cuzzo, maybe you can just give me some beats. We can figure out a way to mix some beats in the different scenes. And so when he really sat down, we put our heads together, he said, yo, cuz, I got this. Come through, because he had did scores for a couple of feature films and some documentaries. So we went to his lab. Now, I had never been in a studio with him. I knew his broad from hip hop, Fugees, this, a lot of people don't know. He produced almost all of Amy Winehouse's first album, and then other. Well, so he's a broad.
Him and Mark Ronson, basically.
Mark came in later. The second joint, Mark did that.
The second joint, but the first joint.
First one was mostly him. So I was like, oh. But the way we worked, there was some joints where there's a thing called fair use, which dictates how you can use an original song in a film. It's very specific legally how you can do it. So what we did was we would play a little bit of, let's say, Peter Tosh's Legalize It, but then when we cut to interviewing Damien, he would create a piece of music that felt like it's right out of that zone. So it's a low key would play. So many times when we play the original joint, he would have something that feels just like that to flow up under there.
I peeped that with the Brand Nubian. That was the one that stuck out to me the most because I was like, wait, that's not even the real beat, but that's the beat. Like it sounded like just like if he just took the hook off of it and just kept it going, but it was
so essentially, which a lot of people don't know because it was such a last minute deal, but there's a whole Grass is Greener soundtrack album that came out. Once again, it's available online.
We were listening to it in the dispensary yesterday.
Swally pulled that up. Shout out to Swally.
She played it.
So Salam. So we got Black Thought to like sing on it. We got Jada and Styles to kind of spit on a track, and so he got Bun B to spit on a track. So we took those instrumental joints that you hear in Grass is Greener, and we turned them into actual records. So we literally have a soundtrack, which was great.
Amazing.
And that's amazing. My cousin. He's living in Barbados now. He moved from Miami to Barbados, and he's got his whole shop set up down there now. So I'll be going down there to visit Salam, my cousin, soon.
That's right.
Yesterday we were all talking, and I'm sure pretty much everyone here has seen the movie Forrest Gump. And how Forrest was always at all these major things and these major. He's the hip hop culture Forrest Gump. He was there for fucking everything.
There for every cultural event.
I have been in the mix for a few of those. Somebody else has said that to me. I'm like, Forrest Gump. Okay.
It just hit me. I'm like, it was just like, yo, he was there for everything. It made me think of that movie, and I was like, yo, he's like the hip hop Forrest Gump. Like
just there for every cultural fucking event possible in hip hop.
There's been a few things it's good time, and listen, it's been a blessing, and I tell you, some of the things that have happened for me
I know.
along the road, like for instance, I didn't start off, some of the things that happened along the way happened because of the direction that I was going in, but I could not foresee like Blondie was going to make a record and shout me out and like put the whole culture on blast in that incredible way. I didn't make Grass is Greener to then turn that into this Be Noble brand to do what that is. So those things are the most exciting and amazing to me, which reaffirm that I know I'm moving in the right way. And so that's been pretty exciting and surprising for me. Once again, when I made Grass is Greener, New York hadn't opened up yet in terms of cannabis.
Just medical, I think, was legal.
It was very limited medical. You couldn't get flour. It was just ridiculous. And so we now have we definitely have the most progressive cannabis laws in the country in New York. Anywhere you can smoke a cigarette, you can blaze your weed right now. So it's pretty dope. And to see people like you guys, which is a similar mission. I love the way you broke down how the music and the culture has always been a part of your background and what you do. That's a reflection of who I am growing up around my dad, his friends, jazz people. Cannabis has been integral. So now we're at a point where we could tell those stories and share this incredible plant.
And I don't think our stories are unique, right? So that's the beauty of it. Like there's a lot of, so when we get to tell that story, people can relate and say, oh man, it's nice to hear. There's that should exist, and I'm not alone in this world. You know what I mean?
No, it's really great. Once again, the culture of cannabis, is something that's always meant a lot to me. And growing up in the household I grew up I was aware that people were going out and protesting for this, and what's that group, Normal, that was the big organization, NORML, I think it's an acronym for something, National Organization Reform of Marijuana Laws, believe it or not, I can't remember, I remember that, with all the weed I smoked, the shit's still functioning, but knowing that, having High Times magazine around as a kid, I was aware that there was a struggle. So in the making of Grass is Greener, that was a part of the story to show how unfortunately our government used this plant to attack certain people protesting the wars and wanting to have a better country for everybody. Black folks fighting for civil rights. When you talk about the Schaefer report, which was an official medical study of cannabis in the 70s when Nixon was the president, they came back and said, yo, we don't see any of this stuff y'all been saying. In fact, there's some benefits to this. Nixon was like, yo, put that shit under the rug right now.
Don't look at that.
Because we want to be able to arrest these people, that's protesting the wars and these people fighting for equal rights. No. I want to be able to lock them up because they giving me a hard time. That's essentially what happened.
Yep.
So as the truth now comes to the surface, it's really good to see, particularly what's going on in New York. People benefit from this that really did deserve. Some of the things that are in the legislation, what the OCM has put down, were discussed in other states. Colorado, California, different parts of California wanted to do these things, but we were able to execute and make them happen in New York. That's why even though there's been a bumpy road, I support what the OCM and the intentions, because when we launched Be Noble, Crystal Peoples Stokes came down from Albany to our opening event to show her support. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like, this is the woman that wrote the legislation, to show their support and to see people like me get a shot in the business.
Nah, they're all very supportive when you're opening and when you're getting going. And then they've been supportive, as we've been open. They haven't given us, we're following all the rules. We're fucking super compliant ass store. We do our due diligence and we hold our shit. Yeah. And we run a tight shit, but they also don't fucking bother us. They're making sure other stores are getting open to be able to sell all the weed. It's a hard job. There's some ways that I would love to bend somebody's ear to tell them about some things that I think we could pump the brakes on and shit and figure out. But
I don't know if you ever been to any OCM meetings, but I peeped a few online, and what's most fascinating is the people that get up and state their case, which is a broad section. Some people want to know why they haven't gotten their license. They state their gripes, but some people just get up and just shine light on a situation that they might not be hip to. And I'm like, yo, this is really dope. I'm not that savvy with all these governmental processes, how they work, but I've seen a lot of inspiring moments where people just get up and speak their mind or, share. So I think you need to show up at an OCM meeting.
And maybe I will.
Maybe I will. Know, hey, I run that hot dispensary, stage 1, and so I got something for y'all. No, seriously, they really want to hear from.
Nah, that's true. You're right.
You guys on the front line.
It means a hell of a lot. Yeah, we're running the business. I'd love to legislate, though. That is definitely something I want to be more involved.
I'd like to share something else that, if you don't mind, that we've been blessed to have happen to what we're doing with Be Noble. And we also have another brand that we're just launching, a female-focused brand called Jungle Girl. But my business partner, Ron, has been in Europe. This is a brother from Cali that was the real legacy cat that moved a bunch of weed around, has been living in Europe. And so because of his connection to what's going on in Europe, we've been able to make Be Noble now a global company. We acquired a German pharmaceutical company, not as big as that sounds, but they were a real company that were going under. And we were able to acquire this company for pennies on the dollar, which essentially now has given us licenses in Germany. But because Germany is a part of the EU, cannabis, once it's approved and EU GMP tested, you can move cannabis around Europe in a way that you can't move cannabis from state to state. It's a similar thing in Europe. Yeah. We had another situation come up in England where we acquired another company. So we essentially now have licenses in Europe. We're bringing cannabis in from places like Portugal and Switzerland into Germany. And then we have another situation which is developing, and we're about to set up, which is in Nairobi, Kenya. All medical, but just as we got our German situation going, Germany went adult use. They don't have dispensaries, but they have these cannabis clubs. But the energy in Europe right now is super exciting, and there's a lot of enthusiasm. They just had Spanibus a week ago. We went last year. We're too busy with what we're doing in New York to go. And then there's another big one in Germany called Mary Jane. People come to these festivals. The energy feels more like a big festival or a concert, as opposed to it being overrun.
Like MJ BizCon or something.
Yeah,
like
with
that.
a lot of corny business guys that want to get in the game. You've got an energy that feels like people are at a concert waiting for their favorite groups to come on. And I'm like, this is different. So there's a buoyancy to what's going on over there that we've got our hands over there now as we once again focus. So this Jungle Girl situation, which is this incredible woman named Natalie Galanka that's had a fashion line, pretty much a swimwear based line targeting women. Now she makes cool stuff for guys as well. And she's a cannabis aficionado. She's from Hawaii but lives in Cali. And we developed this brand with her, Jungle Girl, which we're literally just rolling out right now. Because we learned, we've been thinking about this since we started Be Noble, but women, particularly in the city, are large purchasers of cannabis right now, we're finding. And what we're also learning, which I'm sure you guys probably know, a lot of these chicks, as a lot of people, they never learn how to roll. So the pre-rolls has become very attractive.
Pre-rolls, as long as it's... And tell me about these pre-rolls. They're whole flower, right?
They're whole flower,
That's
which
right.
was an advice we got from you guys about, not that we would put shake up in there, but just to know how important that is. Listening to guys on the front line,
whole
like
flower
dispensary
pre-rolls are where
owners
it's at.
and the bud tenders are critical for us. So what we've been doing as we hit the different spots opening up with the team, Courtney, Larry, Amy, people on our team, and folks on the Curaleaf side, especially Aaron. It's a new cat that's in there heading up sales.
Shout out Aaron.
Yeah, when a new spot opens up that's carrying Be Noble in the city, we show up and do a whole activation, talk to the bud tenders, because the bud tenders, we're learning, that's the front line in talking to the consumer about, oh, this will do that for you. Oh, you need to get some of this. Oh, these guys Be Noble, not only is it fire, but they give back a portion of their revenue. Like in New York, the beneficiary we're giving 10% of our revenue to, a percentage of our revenue to, is called the Bronx Defenders. And this is an organization, it's like legal aids, but these are top flight lawyers that donate their time to help people caught up in the system. A lot of it is nonviolent drug related stuff. So we donate a portion of our funds, and that's what we love to get to share about what our brand is. Not just our weed is better than your weed, you know, our shit is cooler than yours. No, but basically it's like that.
It is.
But we also give back and raise awareness.
For sure.
You know what I mean? No, giving back.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes
foundation.
Yeah, what makes it great is you know, having a purpose, having intention. And then a theme that you've touched on several times throughout your stories, and that's reoccurring on this podcast, is the importance of like not just like going out and doing the fucking thing. You know what I'm saying? Like you see the thing that you want.
Yeah.
You can't like over plan and. You have to actually go and just do it. That's what you were. That's literally every time I was like, "What? Why'd you?" You're like, "I just did it, man. I saw it and I took it." How important that is.
Yeah.
Like your fucking life, all your stories really, honestly showcase that better than anything I could have ever fucking done.
Wow.
But it's to me, it's super important to showcase that part. Like it's so important to just go fucking chase that dream.
It's interesting. It's so powerful that you shine the light on that, because in working on my memoir, which I'm now looking at, a huge portion of my life in terms of all the stuff I've shared, I realized, and I've been a tech-aware person, nerd, if you will, forever. So I'm on the internet often for information. But I think, unfortunately, that has stymied some of that energy. People feel like they figured it all out with a few clicks and a couple of YouTube or a little Instagram posts. People figure like, I got it. So I think that has played a role sometimes in people not going out, not walking into the room, you know. But it's deep because, you know, going out to hear music. I mean, things change and I'm aware of that and I'm for that. But man, there's nowhere to party no more, damn near.
Right.
In New York City, this shit is crazy
Everywhere.
right now.
Everywhere.
And see, you hear
It's
that?
everywhere.
That's shocking to me, B. So it's going out. I remember
I think
coming
it has
up.
to do with drugs, man. Like,
One more time?
I think it has to do with drugs. Like the drugs of this era, it's everybody's on downers and stuff. Like everybody, before it was cocaine, everybody go party, you know, like now the youth, they're on a different type of drug, so they don't want to go out and drink. They don't want to, you know, so I think that's killing the club scene, like nationwide. Like I think that's a thing. I really do.
That's definitely a piece of it,
I was talking to a club owner about it, and he said,
Interesting. I
But
haven't heard
it
that
is
angle on
also
it.
like
Wow.
the alcohol use is down. You
Yeah.
know, people,
Yeah.
the kids
In general,
are,
in
you
general.
know, the kids are at home on their devices.
well, they're also
You know
more
what I'm
into health too, like compared
Yeah,
to the
they are.
previous
Well, I
generation.
right,
Like,
because their devices are telling them to be fucking healthy.
A lot more cannabis is being used by
a lot.
younger folks want cannabis products. I know all the big soft drink companies are waiting for what soft drink is going to really pop off so they can move in that lane. But that's interesting about the down drugs. That's true. There's a lot of
yeah. And I don't
people
know
on-
if there's any data that supports that. That was just me having a conversation with a club owner, and it seems like it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it
You know what
does.
I'm saying?
I know
Because
in certain hip hop, you hear people talk about, you know, Molly Percocet or Percocets, and I'm like, wait,
Percocet.
that's like a downer. Ugh.
yeah.
Never was appealing to me, those kind of down heads, if you will.
Could you see yourself in the future in New York City because you are like the curator, opening a consumption or being a part of opening consumption spaces for cannabis in New York City?
I haven't given any thought to that. I'm waiting to see how the consumption business is going to work. I'm really excited that New York has all these things on the burner. But also what's going to become an increasing thing for us is, like I told you, we've got businesses that we've now set up in Europe, and my business partner right now is in Nairobi, Kenya. We just set up shop there. Unbelievable. There's a real thriving economy, and like other places, cannabis has been criminalized all over the world. Harry Anslinger, I believe, had a part to play in that, in his influence on the United Nations. When countries signed on to United Nations, they had to sign a particular document, if you will, a piece of legislation, if you want to call it that, that listed cannabis along with all these other hardcore drugs. So all these other countries now that have illegal cannabis, it's really a residual effect of the bullshit that we have in America. They're unraveling that now. That's why Germany and them looked at, they said, wait a minute, and there's medical benefits. There's not one person you could find that died from cannabis use, and you got this thing criminalized. So they're beginning to open up, and other countries in Europe are going to follow, as well as Africa. So we love the idea that it's now on the tip. Kenya's out front. Ghana's talking about it. South Africa's making some moves. You know, the home of Durban Poison.
Yeah.
They've kind of legalized to a certain extent. They don't have dispensaries yet, but they're all watching what each other's doing. As the revenue starts to flow through and people get the medical benefits, they're gonna fall in line like dominoes, as is gonna happen over in Europe. Germany's the biggest country in Europe with over 80 million people, and as they go, a lot of other Europeans are following, the biggest economy over there. So we're looking to really be able to be in touch with what we're doing there as well as here. So
Yeah, that is definitely, when I travel to Europe, is always a concern of mine. Am I going to be able to fucking smoke? Can't like smoke in Italy necessarily. Like,
see, yeah, from country to country, it's a little different.
It's a little different. So.
But it's same as different, like, once again, it's very comparative to different states. Some states are cooler.
I know Scotty's making a face like, I don't give a fuck, I'll go to Europe, I'd find the weed.
I couldn't see. I was telling Ricky to move back. He keeps going in front of me.
You would find the weed in Italy, wouldn't you?
I would definitely do my best. I would do my fucking best.
It's a lot easier now.
I got that look though. People just ask if I want weed. Like, you want weed? Like everywhere I go, I get asked. Like, I guess I don't look like a cop. It's safe to say.
I tell you what's funny for me, having gone to Europe over the years, it used to be when you'd pull up to different countries, Germany, England, wherever, all they pretty much had was hash. I mean, what they had in the weed category was the worst of the worst. So people would immediately start busting down hash, mixing with cigarette tobacco, and that was the norm throughout Europe. But that has changed considerably. There's a lot of good weeds around. Of course, the guys in Amsterdam were instrumental in a lot of the early cultivation, seeds, producing quality seeds. And then once again, Steve Hager, who's in my film, the guy that was the editor of High Times at a critical time in the 90s, at one point High Times was actually doing articles on cocaine and other kind of things. And so when Steve became the editor, he's like, yo, no more of those powders. We're gonna go hard on weed. And then he went extra hard on cannabis cultivation, and then became big supporters of the Cannabis Cup.
What year did that switch happen?
This was in the early 90s. Once again, when Steve Hager ran it, it coincided, it was his brilliant idea to put Method Man, Snoop, Redman, Cypress on the cover, because when he realized, oh wait, these guys are big, they're proponents of cannabis. So that was like a big period. But he was, that basically, as you guys know, Amsterdam was out front with the cultivation and the quality cannabis.
Oh yeah.
They're major guys that now have, some of them have huge businesses. When you go to the big trade shows like Spanibus, or those guys have big displays with all the seeds, selling seeds everywhere now.
Yeah, their genetics, their genetic library, they take that shit real seriously.
Very seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Strain Hunters was a pretty cool podcast. Those guys would travel around trying to find those old school strains and deep into Colombia and shit like that. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
That's super dope.
Land race, exactly. How do you feel about the fact that with all the kind of cannabis that we consume on a regular, those genetics are have infiltrated, if you will, those other regions and have become kind of dominant in a lot of areas? I mean, I know land race seeds, they don't produce high yield and all that stuff, but I'm still like, man, I'd love to have some of that weed I used to blaze back in the day.
A lot of it's flower time too, how long they take to flower.
When I go to growers and I ask these guys, they give me good reasons where I understand from a business point of view.
And in the beginning too, though, it's like it was only outdoors, so they had to really stick to very specific strains that would work, that would give them what they needed and be resilient in this weather.
Got it.
And in this climate. And then even when you're doing greenhouse, you're still, if it's not fully climate controlled, which in the beginning it also wasn't, and there was like restrictions behind how many lights you could have and whether you could have it fully climate controlled, and then they lightened it up. So then, and for the growers in the beginning, it was really hard to tell which way everything was going, because there was changes in leadership, and there was like in the beginning there was this woman that was really hard against, she was like the one that was really against indoor grows, and then she took a job in like Governor Hochul's administration, and then she was no longer on the board, and then the rest of the board was a little bit lighter on the indoor idea. So then they brought in like that's when the micros and all that other stuff started to come down the pipe. So that, and they started pushing that type of shit through and lightened up on the lighting restrictions. But when you're investing that type of infrastructure in that type of infrastructure and that type of capital early on, some of these smaller farmers, they didn't want to do major based off of what whether OCM was going to go in their direction, major purchases, I should say. You know, so then that's why in the beginning you had it. Now that you have more indoor, you have a lot more freedom with what you can produce and the genetics that you're gonna start seeing getting brought into the market.
I think it's great. Once again, I'm super enthused of what's going on in the New York market, but across the country and many times around the world, we've got these cornballs in suits who really don't smoke or not connected to the culture, creating these cannabis laws or these laws, and it's like it's a reflection that these guys don't get it. I mean, when it was alcohol, people were familiar with whether it was a glass of wine, a shot of whiskey, they had a familiarity with the vibe from this particular spirit to that spirit.
But when you're John Boehner in Oklahoma, I saw him, and you're like, but that what an unlikely bedfellow, huh?
Good Lord, right?
What?
As the Speaker of the House, he was so against it. He was so against DC getting medical, and then they were able to buy him, and he was on the board.
Now he's private though. Now he's in the private sector, and now he's a lobbyist, like one of the biggest lobbyists for cannabis because he's in Oklahoma, and that's where his constituents are, and he's like,
but what was the big Canadian company? Was it Canopy Grow? One of those big Canopy companies.
Oh, they probably also gave him a bunch of money.
Gave him a bunch of money. He got a board seat. And I'm like, John Boehner? This guy that was vehemently against
it.
DC, people getting a chance to say what they wanted, and when the people voted,
when he said cornballs and suits, he just immediately flashed it. And I was like,
sorry, Boehner. And Boehner was interesting. The way he used to start crying was such a great meme.
Crying Boehner, that was a very good meme for a long time, the Crying Boehner meme.
I do want to highlight, though, the opposite end of that, and some people in those government seats who are doing it right. Somebody who had in your film, Cassandra Frederick.
Exactly. That was a great... It was through Cassandra that I then learned that she was right hand, consigliere almost, to Crystal People Stokes. So what happened was, 2 weeks before the film comes out, my local representative in Harlem and brings Crystal People Stokes to my home, and I screened the movie for them. Midway through the film, Al Taylor's his name, I believe. Right, Larry? Al Taylor's the representative. He was there with his wife and Crystal People. He said, "Dad, I need some tissues." This lady was crying, and I think Crystal was shedding a tear as well. I didn't know who she was. After the screening, she hit me. They called me back. Would I come up to Albany and screen the film for about 50 legislators that were very concerned about this? That's when I really got to understand it. Cassandra was at the screening, some other major cannabis players. I was like, oh, now I learned that. So Cassandra with Drug Policy Alliance, she was the New York director then, she's the national director. They're one of them in the cut orgs that get into these different states and start moving shit around to help get the...
What year was that you screened the film for that?
Oh, the film comes out in 2019, so this is just a few weeks before that.
So like prior to the legislators that are like on the fence about legalization, and legalization isn't even passed yet.
No, it hasn't.
And then they see your film.
It helped a lot of people really to...
Fuck yeah,
yeah.
Man.
Also, several of the representatives got at me, and Netflix was cool with helping them, once the film dropped, arranging screenings, because they would talk. Sometimes you have communities, particularly with older black folks, that have been through their young siblings, nephews, whatever, getting caught up in the system. They had a very negative perception to this plant and what it can really do. So they needed to be convinced, and they didn't know all the history. So these guys are like, man, if I can screen this from my constituents, it would help the argument that I've been trying to get them to understand. So I was like, oh my God. So I connected them with Netflix. They've set up mad educational screenings.
Making art that matters to the degree that piece of art fucking mattered, dude, to so many people.
Yeah, it was deep.
Fuck.
The whole New York State as a whole.
It was a blessing.
Our legalization itself.
There's a brother, Tahir Johnson, I believe is his name. He was sort of a cannabis activist cat, young brother, who was leaning towards the financial, on some investment, Wall Street type of shit. He told me it was unbelievable, it's chilling. He said, man, and there's a particular moment in my film that gets certain people when they talk to the white cat at the convention, and it's my voice asking. I didn't do the interview, but the cat that was my producer, and I'm pretty much saying, how do you feel about those that were victimized by these drug laws, that they should get a shot in the business too? And he was like, no, those guys are all potheads. They don't need to be in the game. And the way that part goes down, people get so incensed. My man,
that shit.
Tahir said that was the moment.
Boil, bro. When he said that, I was like, yo, are you fucking serious?
So this cat, Tahir, that turned him all around. He dived into cannabis on the legislative tip and whatever, and now he owns a dispensary in Jersey.
Nice.
So those stories are just amazing. You can't make it up. It's such a rewarding situation, and just humbled by that type of stuff, you know.
One of the things that
you do it with the right intent. You're not out here. You like have the purpose behind it. It's purpose driven. It's and then to see it get the light it deserves, and then also have such a humongous impact on the culture at large is just like, man.
Yeah, it was a blessing,
inspiring.
literally a blessing. But I felt a connection, as you felt with what's motivated you, between the culture having been blessed to be a part of the beginnings of hip hop, and kind of seeing this culture develop and grow, and having a hand in that. It's the same thing I see happening in cannabis, and it's just a blessing to, you know, once again, to telling Bernard's story and making people aware that there's still other people in prisons right now in some of these southern states for minuscule amounts of cannabis, and they all need to be freed. Records need to be expunged. Stop playing. Let's get this done. That's some fundamental shit. Yes, indeed.
I wanted to just highlight about one thing about New York, how we've kind of pushed the bar and done it right. And with Cassandra, one of the things, because I was already familiar with her work, because I had seen she was speaking to the legislator about she's one of the reasons why we can smoke outside in New York State is because while they were making it legal and coming up with all the regulations, Obama had at that time passed guidance for like project buildings to more strictly enforce the no smoking rules. So at that time, if we had not allowed it to smoke outside, then it would have put those people at risk for evictions or for more discrimination. So that is the reason why we in New York State can smoke so freely, and we're the only state that can. So that's why I just wanted to highlight, like, shout out to Cassandra.
Listen, Cassandra Frederick, when I heard her talk, she is such a forceful, impactful speaker, charismatic and all that. I was like, sister, you are just incredible. So she spit fire in my film. And then we became friends, and I learned a hell of a lot. And like I said, when I got invited up to Albany, she was there, and then I learned that she was right hands to Crystal to execute, and they were fighting the governor numerous times. It came up. He wanted to chop this out, chop that out. They was like, no way. And so we eventually end up getting pretty much largely what they wanted, and so it was amazing to see that all take place.
Luckily, he was fighting that scandal at the time.
You know what time. He was under pressure.
That's what that corruption was in our favor. You know?
So he signed that.
That's how the college, the free public college happened too. Like, he was under.
He had
he had a scandal there too. People behind me here, you know.
Yo, that's
didn't work for you, but
it did.
Thanks for pandering to us.
I mean, he is about to be the mayor in New York.
Look at you, right?
But not for nothing.
He's
Shout out
about to
to
be
New
the mayor
York.
in New York City.
Shout out to New York when you brought up the LaGuardia report.
Yeah,
now that's back in
report.
1944. After 1937, they passed the Marijuana Taxation Act, and that's when they actually banned it.
That's when cannabis was criminalized.
New York State Mayor LaGuardia.
Mayor
LaGuardia.
Yes.
He issued his own report.
That's right.
To have them
Which
go do
basically
studies
was
on
like,
it.
yeah,
and said
this is
everything
all
that
good.
the Schaefer report says.
Yes.
And he's in New York City,
40
right?
decades earlier.
Yes,
He's
was
the mayor of New York City, so the
popular
study
man.
is
Shout out to New York. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Good
We
point.
always wanted
That's
to
a good
get
point.
over.
That's a very
New
good
York
point.
has always been an advocate. We've been trying. You know what I mean? We're doing what we can.
Nah,
Even
that's
before,
what.
like when it almost started to go, like remember they were like, you can't search a car for smell no more.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, man, I'm smoking in the car.
But they're trying to bring that shit back,
searched in
though,
3 years.
which is whack as fuck. Doesn't even make any sense, because you know how much weed I have in my car constantly because I get samples. What am I supposed to leave them at the office? Well, I can't. So I got to take them home, and so I transport them, and some of the shit is gas. So now you're gonna fucking search me. I'm a dispensary owner because I got weed in my car, and you can smell it. Bringing the smell test back, they're talking about it. Hopefully it doesn't pass, but it's fucking stupid. I'm gonna get on the record and say that shit is stupid because there's a legal industry. You're gonna say because the weed that I sell in my dispensary is gas and you can smell that shit through the bag, that the customers gotta hide that shit in their trunk like they're fucking criminals. Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
And unfortunately, these are lames that have never smoked and are not familiar. They should talk to people that indulge and talk to people like this, their own dispensaries, before you try to make these kind of, judgment calls.
Don't walk back the things you're doing right. Like, why do that? It's just dumb. It's hard. It's hard to walk shit back. So hopefully they don't get to. But it's fucking come on. Let's just. Everything's working. It's bumpy. We're making it work.
Yes.
But in general, we're New Yorkers, so we're gonna make it work. But in general, it's working. So let's just progress towards better.
Yeah.
Why fucking be worse?
Well, what it is police are making less money now. They're on,
they have
search
less
and
of a
seizure
reason
and
to
shit,
search your car.
Word up.
That's definitely what's going on.
Yeah.
They want those arrests back. They want those.
Cannabis is politics.
That's why they're going crazy.
Yeah. Isn't it though?
It is all the way around.
Shouldn't be that way.
If you smoke cannabis, you should be political, because because honestly though, like it's been held against.
I would say if you
people,
care about cannabis, you should be political.
If you care about cannabis, but I mean, even if you're, I guess if you're not a casual smoker, but if you're like a smoker, like care about cannabis, and then also care about what's on the backs of cannabis and what there was a lot of shit that happened that got us to here. You know what I'm saying? So let's just like be appreciative and grateful, and just and there's a lot of political will that allowed it to get to where it's at.
And a lot of lies. And on top of that, once again, we had 80 years of, it's the gateway drug and it's going to, just say no. But nobody has died from use of this plant.
Right.
There's not one case of somebody. The worst things you hear are people that eat too many edibles because they didn't really realize
and
they
fall
weren't
off
supposed
a roof
to.
or something.
Literally the craziest story. I had a cousin who was texting me in gibberish, and I thought maybe she's having a stroke. I heard when people are having a stroke, they can't think. And later she hit me back. I ate one too many edibles, not realizing what I was doing, and when this shit kicked in, she was going crazy. But a day later, she was okay.
Right. Nah,
Stop fronting on the plant, baby.
Yeah.
For real.
Stop fronting now. So there we go.
For real.
All right. Scotty, let's get into these segments that let's break off. You got what
Okay, cool.
kicks did
So
you bring today?
we were talking about the Air Forces earlier. I bought Simple Pair today, but the reason I did it was you're a big part of bridging the downtown scene with the hip hop scene.
Yeah.
All the Streets Are Silent. I seen that documentary. You're in
Oh
that.
God, yes, I'm in that. That's incredible.
So
Yeah.
I'm a skateboarder, big into streetwear, sneaker culture, Supremes, New York. You can't really tell that downtown story without talking about them.
True.
So I brought the Supreme Air Force Ones.
Okay.
Throw them up there, Jay.
Sick.
So yeah, nothing really to tell about them. Just white Air Forces with a box logo.
So the laces is these
and the box logo on the side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Classic.
So yeah, it's just down. It's New York as it gets. Supreme Air Force One.
I mean,
downtown,
talk a little bit
uptown,
about Supreme and what they mean to the culture in general. Why not segue a little bit?
They started as a skate shop.
Yeah.
Like they weren't even like. All right, so James Jebbia, the dude that created Supreme, he had this vision of skateboards as art. He wanted, boards you could put on the wall. Like that was the idea, and he wanted there was no skate shop in the city at the time, like to get your trucks, your bearings, your wheels, anything. So he opened that Supreme with the idea to sell T-shirts and decks and skate equipment. And
he put a skate team together.
Yeah, team. And I wanted to also talk to you about Harold Hunter.
Yes, I met Harold. I knew
Yeah,
Harold.
I
Well, it
didn't
was
know
a
how.
shorty. When I saw he was blowing up,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
saw he was kind of wild, I pulled him to the side and got in his ear. Yeah. So what was fascinating about that doc, All the Streets Are Watching, is I was in the mix at the time, but never a skater. So I totally understand that connection going on. Although we were all partying together. There was a club called Mars that I would be at when the native tongue groups were coming together, Tribe, De La, all those cats, they were all coming. That was a club where everybody was coming together, but I didn't realize the skater connection going on there. Harold hit my radar because I saw the movie Kids.
Yes.
When Kids was hot, and I knew that was going to blow up because they were talking about like, oh, you parents, you need to see this movie to know what your kids are really doing. These kids in New York City. I'm like, man, let me go see this movie. What are these kids doing? Oh, they cutting school and playing hip hop, Wu-Tang. I was like smoking weed. Oh,
Smoking weed, fucking.
It's all good. But it's still scared. It was a great movie with the AIDS little drama involved in that. But so I learned and saw how integrated these two cultures really were. That movie helped really explain it all to me, not having been a skater. But I remember I had friends on the scene. I know James Jebbia. I knew the cats that were skating in New York at that time, just New York street skating. I went to that place under the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, Brooklyn Banks.
Brooklyn Banks. I just had a mountain bike at the time, and mad skaters, the kids from the Beastie Boys who used to all hang, we used to all hang out on the same thing, they would all be there. So I seen all of that, but that film brought it all together for me as the epicenter for the New York skater culture. I was blown away by that. So
just casually being like the kids from the Beastie
fact
Boys.
you want to talk about somebody
at that time. I know
you want to talk about elusive people, James Jebbia. That dude does not do interviews. Like he's just
keeps it really low key.
You can find like one interview with him.
But you know what's incredible about that brand, and like my buddy Larry over here on our team is really knowledgeable about this, and I would tell him, knowing through that period in the 90s when hip hop developed urban wear, when you had Fat Farm, Rockaware, and a dozen brands making real money, Echo, a lot of Supreme was offered huge bags of money to partner with bigger manufacturing brands. They said no many, many times. And I saw all these other brands get 100, 200, like million real money for their brands, the Rockaways, Echo, Sean Johns, all that stuff. And Supreme kept it in this very kind of managed space, which turned out to be the very smart thing to do.
$2 billion.
Because they got acquired.
He even turned down Louis Vuitton tried buying them. LVHM.
LVMH.
LVMH. Sorry.
Which owns dozens of major.
So many. So like you think all these designer brands are competition? They aren't. They're all owned by them. It's one big conglomerate. And but anyways, they were gonna buy Supreme right after they collabed together. And it was like for like 1.4 or something, and they're like, "No, we don't want it." Like,
amazing. So they said no a lot of times.
Skate Shop turned into that.
Extension. Oh, and by the way, the box logo. There's a visual artist, like kind of a conceptual.
Give her flowers.
Barbara Kruger.
Yep.
All her work would pretty much be text.
She hates Supreme, by the way. She fucking hates Supreme.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
But she don't get it.
But once again, knowing the brand, knowing how dope Supreme has been and everything, seeing that movie, All the Streets Are Watching, brought it all together. Yep. This is a great time for documentaries, by the way, and we have so many outlets to see them, and that's one of the things that even Grass is Greener and so many other docs, you get a story that you really couldn't get, because just reading is fundamental and really important, but to see, to hear all these different moments. There's a moment in that film
and different perspectives too, because usually a book will be told from one lens. You know what I'm saying?
Very good point.
So the doc's giving you all lenses, because there's always multiple sides to a story. So
Well, a good doc will give a lot of
absolutely,
correct.
But before we get sidetracked, I wanted to say, like, I don't think there's a brand out there that embodied New York City more than Supreme.
No, I would agree. They really,
and it was so authentic, it was just so authentic, I've been into them for years, so to see them blow up to what they did,
so let me ask you this, crazy. I see you really knowledgeable. What's your take on them now?
They just got sold again, so I wasn't mad at the first sale, because that brand owned Well, that was VH Corp, Vanity Fair.
Okay,
VF
right,
Corp.
exactly.
My bad.
Yeah.
They owned Timberland, North Face,
Right.
Vans. They owned all these brands. They collabed with season in every season, season in, season out.
Right.
Every year they collabed with these guys. So it was like, oh shit, it kind of makes sense. They're already working with these guys all the time, anyways. Now they just sold to like Oakley, and now I'm just like Oakley and Sunglass Hut and
sunglasses.
and they own a couple other big brands too, but it's nothing in this realm. So I'm like, I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah, good point. Good
Yeah,
observation.
I wouldn't be surprised. So I already seen they're trying, because as you know, they've only sold Supreme in Supreme stores or
Correct.
online.
Yeah.
That was the only way to get it. So now I'm seeing they're trying to put the sunglasses in Sunglass Hut year round. I'm like, oh, that's the first step into them being
branded
in other stores, I think. I think
Yeah.
in 10 years we'll be seeing Supreme in actual stores. And I
Wow,
don't
that's
like
what
that.
that will ruin the brand.
Well, that's once again, that's part of what they did that was so genius. They only had a store on Lafayette Street downtown.
Yeah.
They would do a drop. What, Larry? Every Wednesday, Thursday, people would be lined up to buy this stuff, and the same thing in L.A. What's that street, Larry? Fairfax.
Yeah.
That was
it's on
the,
Fairfax.
they went there first, and then that became the hottest, coolest street. Tyler opened up his golf store there.
Yep.
That's now over, I understand, because those stores are now moving. But that was a big part of the cachet, is they kept this kind of limited availability. They didn't mass produce everything. When they would do a drop, it would be a limited, and then it'd be resold online for. So they basically played a very unique game through that urban period, which was fascinating.
They
to me.
kind of created the drop business model. You
Wow.
know what I'm saying? Like, you know, sneakers. I feel like sneakers kind of adopted it from them, even though, like, you
Interesting.
know, like with the
Yeah.
scarcity and whatnot. Like, because if you look, Nike started collabing with them in the early 2000s. And that's when Nike really started getting on that scarcity wave. You know. Also with the collab with Staple, Jeff Staple, the Pigeon Dunks.
I didn't know that.
Early 2000s. That's what really started the sneaker craze right there. People went crazy over these dunks. The NYPD had to shut the release down.
Wow.
And right around then is when Nike really started, you know, changing their business model
They
and how they
started
looked
to
at
understand
sneakers.
something,
And
yeah.
I can't attribute it to just Supreme, you know, because they were working with multiple streetwear brands at that time. Nike SB, actually, shall I say, because that was a whole different division in Nike that was
SB,
just
yeah.
doing great things. They kind of just were in their own realm, you know,
Absolutely.
like really tapped it. Like Nike is corporate as hell, but they were super tapped into skate culture. They made sure they were, because they had 2 failed attempts at skateboarding twice before that in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it failed miserably. No skaters wanted to fuck with it. I love Nike, and I was a skater then, and I didn't even want to fuck with Nike in the skateboarding world, though. Like, you know what I mean?
Right,
I'm like, I wear
yeah.
Nikes when I'm not skateboarding, you know? And they came out with the Nike SBs, and they killed it. They
Killed
really,
it, yeah.
they
Great
made them
shoe.
available only in skate shops, like small skate shops.
Yeah.
You couldn't get them in the mall and shit.
No.
Like, we got
Seasons,
you
yeah.
know, right,
Shout out
right on
Seasons.
Lark Street. Shout out Seasons.
Got
They used
many
to get
dunks there.
they used to get all my
Crazy
SBs
dunk
there,
collection from there.
and you know, they would only have them there and online, you know,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't let any big stores get them, and that was dope. Like, and they kind of adopted that business model from these guys. I think, like,
Yeah, for sure.
they took a lot of cues from them. A lot, and all these other brands that followed did too, you know.
Yeah, amazing story. Wow, it's fascinating.
Bathe and Ape too. You got to shout out to Bathe and Ape too. They were both founded around the same time.
Yeah.
93 and 94, I think, is
Bathing
years.
Ape,
Bape, yeah.
Bape?
BAPE, Bape, Bathing Ape.
but they were kind of modeled. They modeled that whole sneaker after the after the Air Force One. They
Oh,
had-
absolutely. But the
yeah,
brand
yeah,
in
yeah.
general,
Yeah.
like with the scarcity and whatnot. Like,
Okay.
it was much like Supreme.
No,
you know?
but the sneakers
came out
very
around the same
like
time.
Air Force One.
Yeah.
is what
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like.
without a
It's
doubt.
It's like
with the
blatant.
star,
That's what I
it's
mean.
like
When I
it's
Oh
first
my
saw
god,
it.
it's a blatant fucking it's a
Yeah,
blatant
yeah.
copy.
Yeah,
But
I remember the-
Nigo actually just collabed with Nike finally.
Wow.
The creator of Bathe and Ape. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just collabed with Nike officially finally.
Wow.
So that's dope.
So in the early 2000s, I was working on a documentary that sadly would never come out for Jay-Z when he took a team to the Rucker Park. It was a legendary
Yes,
basketball
yes.
streetball
Versus
park
Terror
in
Squad.
Harlem. And one day, Jay, he just started dating his wife now, Beyonce. I remember one day Jay-Z showed up. He had on these wild sneakers. I think they were maybe yellow and green. And I was like, and I was looking, they thought they was Air Force Ones, but then I saw this star and I was like, I didn't know. And then he had on these jeans, which had this interesting design on the pocket.
The
Evisu jeans.
Yep.
And Bape sneakers. I said, yo, Jay, like, what's up? And he was like, oh, Bathing Ape, Bape. And so that's when I realized, yo, this must be hot. And then those Evisu jeans that's that era of those super expensive designer jeans, which was like, I'm like, what's going on here? And these cats would be like, cats in fashion would break down, like,
I
how
fell
it
victim to
sticks.
those jeans.
And they would turn the shit inside out. I'm like, dude. Japanese denim shit.
I fell victim to the
I'd be like, I
Evisus
hear
for
you,
sure.
but who the hell? And then they started knocking that shit off like crazy. Cats was getting, the jeans was like $400-500, you know.
Do we got any other would have been projects that never came out?
Whoa, would have been projects that never came out. I'm sure there's many. I can't think of something right away. But
yeah, Jay-Z basketball
quite the one.
documentary.
that was really huge. So what happened was Jay-Z was like, I'm taking a team to the Rucker, the legendary ballpark. And then he was going to plan to retire. He released his Black album. It was all perfect. He had always wanted to work with me and vice versa. So he got me to direct this thing. And, you know, the Rucker has been a legendary part of my life. You hear about it. Since I've been living in Harlem, you occasionally go. You know, here's Kobe, here's Bill Clinton pulling up to the park. It was incredible. The energy was unbelievable. So Jay-Z's and the dream matchup, which everybody hoped would be his team versus Fat Joe's team. Fat Joe had won the chip 2 years prior, so this was setting up to be perfect. And so Jay-Z got this tour bus for the whole team. It was wrapped with his S. Carter sneaker, which was dropping. Every week we'd meet, film the team, ride up on this bus, go to the Rucker, and as the games progress, it's looking like it's going to be Jay-Z first Fat Joe. LeBron is just coming out of high school. He's hanging out with us. There's a doc that you can see, not the one I was making, which was called The Blackout. It's on Amazon now. I'm in it, interviewed, documents this whole incredible
I've seen that doc.
Season.
It's a good
This
doc.
tournament was the most epic season at Rucker. And then it comes down to Jay-Z's team is going to play Fat Joe's team, the Terror Squad. The day of that final game, we meet at Jay-Z's studio downtown on 25th Street, which was called Baseline. I'd be in the studio, film this one, you know, the different players showing up. We getting ready to get on the bus, roll up to Harlem to the Rucker Park. We're in the studio and the lights start flickering in the studio. We think it's the building. My baby's mom calls me and says, yo, I'm up here on 30-something Street. Are your lights on? We go, well, the lights have been flickering. Turns out this is the beginning of the blackout. So the blackout, the light, the whole city is shut down. The whole team is outside. We're ready. Jay-Z got a bag full of money. He's ready to say, yo, I'm ready to bet the whole park. LeBron was going to play that game. It was going to be so epic. You're like, oh my God, this is about to be it. I got cameras rolling. We covering this, that, and the third. But then it turns out when we get word from the park, it's like, yo, the game is canceled, right. So the game can't be played. Jay-Z's got a trip planned with his lady, so he's gone. He was the one that can fly the ringers in, the NBA cats that would fill in with the top street cats. So then they set a date. Jay-Z's gone. We show up at the Rucker Park to have the game, but the game basically doesn't happen. It's forfeited. So Fat Joe drops that record, Lean Back, and the line, not even Pee Wee Kirkland could imagine this. My niggas didn't have to play to win a championship. Was a dig at Jay, because him and Jay had beef back then.
That's crazy.
Man, listen, that was the hottest record. That's Lean Back.
Oh man,
Lean Back.
Tell me about it. That
But
was
that was
crazy.
Wow.
So unfortunately, like I said,
The
you see the blackout
greatest
doc,
game that never happened.
It definitely was.
Pro or
Street shit.
anything.
Yeah,
Even
wow.
out of pros. Like,
Yeah, if you see that blackout doc, Amazon, pull it up. It tells that whole story. So that was
It's
one
a
that
great
never
doc,
happened.
for real.
But it was fun being there, you know, seeing that go down.
Wow.
Was that an
Nah,
ESPN doc? Was
No, ESPN was covering those games then, as was the local station in New York. So, but no, that
I
was
didn't know if it was a 30 for 30. I remember
no,
watching.
no,
it. I
wasn't.
couldn't
This one
remember.
wasn't a 30 for 30. Like I said, this was independently done. Should have been a 30 for 30, but you can pull it up
Could have been. It
on
was good as fuck, man.
on Amazon. The Blackout, Fat Joe, and the Terrace Guard versus Jay-Z, S. Carter, whatever. That was epic. So,
That's crazy, bro. Like, yeah, I can't wait to read your memoir because your life is
He was
fucking
he was
crazy.
everywhere.
I got some stories, baby.
He was
Yeah.
everywhere.
I got some
Man.
stories for y'all, no question. Man. I'm laying it all out.
Be like this guy and live your life.
Word.
Man. Take the chances, make the opportunities, man. Like
You know,
that's-
one of the things that inspired me, I love the way you are framing it up, is one of the things that inspired me was, as a graffiti artist, the way we figured out how to get in and get out was on some stealth, Mission Impossible type shit, the way we was as young shorties. Because not just doing it a lot, but not getting caught was a big part of the graffiti subculture. So being able to get nice with that, the idea that inspired me in other areas that I would move into, like figuring out being a fine artist and connecting with Jean-Michel at that time, we could figure this shit out. We're gonna put our brains together and figure out a way to get in. We're gonna work our way around, whether we gotta come up over the roof, we're gonna come up from down there. We are getting in. You feel me? That was mandatory. And so in every other thing that I approached, that same attitude is what's in me. Thinking back to what we did as graph artists, how we took over the whole city, so to speak, because it was hated, vilified, no love, and we was just doing that shit. That's what we wanted to do. Right. And I saw a similar energy in the making of the music. Like, we ain't got nothing, we gonna bust open this street light, tap into the city's power, and play this music outside for y'all. You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
And so those things really motivated and inspired me.
Oh yeah.
Wait,
man.
can you elaborate on that? You say that like it's a regular thing. I know what you're talking about, but I don't think a lot of people know what you're talking about. Tapping into the electric source.
Yeah, in the beginning of hip hop, the DJs were the first important element that put together big sound systems, amplifiers, loud sound. It would bring it out either on the block or in the local parks, and they could bust open the bottom of the street light and some wires in there, of course, and they knew which wires to splice into to basically get power from the city to power your sound system.
Come on, like that's crazy.
Yeah,
dude.
but there were people you would see in the serious hoods. You would see multiple wires sometime coming from the lamppost all the way up and running into people's cribs because they was getting that power. They couldn't pay that Con Edison bill.
Right.
So if you knew how to hook that up, you'd be like, yo, we could tap in there and run a long ass extension cord and you could get power. So people knew this is how we can circumnavigate
Right. No excuses.
the system to get it done. And so coming from that culture is inspired. It's always there.
Yeah. No, definitely. That's beautiful. So this one is definitely. I was trying to decide which one I wanted to do. I had a few different options, but I'm choosing this one because I feel like this song kind of encapsulates everything that we've talked about today, and also in the spirit of Wild Style of the party. Yeah. And just like this is one of my it's definitely one of my party records. It's also my weed record, and it's definitely something that it's also off of my project that I just dropped that I gotta keep promoting. Composition on all platforms.
Calm as in CALM.
We're gonna put that link in the description.
Composition.
Shout out to Swarley. Made me this beautiful piece of art. The yin yang.
It's a beautiful thing, and you can really feel it. It's got an incredible texture.
Yes, this is definitely one of the coolest pieces of art I got. So, with no further ado, I said, this ideology misguided honesty. Wish you was stopping me, bitch. I'm a prodigy, spit and a body beast. It's not a probably the most consistent. Always got the heat. Who is hot as me? Not you. Old school like Blue Creek, Elementary, North Colony. Rappers act tough, that's just so comedy. Broke is a joke, but you won't. Yo, mama me making good music, but you don't know cause my flow go oh so uncommonly. Follow me. I'ma be chilling on top with the crown on top of me. But for now I'm just chilling in the whip with your chick sheet top of me, bopping me, slopping me, whopping me, mopping me, and you feel sick like that's your property. And I'm I'm like, bitch, it's not Monopoly. Killing this shit with no apology. Buddha boy lit, we smoked that fire weed. So many clips, I don't know how many. New York just hit the jackpot with the 518, no lottery. That's facts. Hold up, stop the beat. Buddha boy, scroll that properly. Scroll it, scroll it down, hold it, scroll it, scroll it down, hold it, scroll it, scroll it down, hold it, just scroll it, scroll it down, hold 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 it, just scroll it down, hold it. Buddha, 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 Buddha. Life's cold, yeah, I'm cooler than the cooler. Oh, so got me cruising with a cougar. Got a flow that a koofy, any crew and niggas. Nightmare, Boss King, Cooper, Freddy, Cougar, nigga. Making big moves, you a minor mover. I'm the shit, they be smelling my manure. Bitch, I'm hot, I'm trying to scuba in Aruba till I hit a kick rocks like he riding on a scooter. Buddha boy, but I ain't fucking with the hookah. Cause bitches got a dirty mouth like a sewer. Now I ain't trying to have holes in my chewer. Just scroll it down, hold it, let me show you how to do it, nigga. Scroll it down, hold it. Puff, puff, pass. Scroll it down, hold it. Blunt so smash.
Scroll it down, hold it.
2 Dutchess, 4 bags, that extendo. Motherfuckers won't laugh. Scroll it down, hold it. Had to cop a whole zip every time I cop a 7, it be done so fast. You want bars or do you want beers? Well, I got one here. That's Buds on Draft. Raw zigzag. Palmer rap. Love to scroll it so much I forgot about every single bong I had. Carrots in the Fonto bag. Scroll it. It'll put you on your ass. Scroll it. Nigga, we was smoking that medicinal before any motherfucking law got patches. Scroll it. Scroll it. Scroll it down. Hold it. Scroll it. Scroll it. Scroll it down. Hold it. Scroll it. Scroll it. Scroll it down. Hold it. Just scroll it. Just scroll it. Scroll it down. Hold it. Scroll it. Scroll it. Scroll it down. Hold it. Scroll it. Scroll it. Scroll it down. Hold it. Scroll it. Scroll it. Scroll it down. Hold it. Just scroll it. Just scroll it. Scroll it down. Hold it. Word up. Appreciate you, dog. Thank you. Respect. Appreciate you.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Composition out now everywhere. Appreciate you. Shout out to
it's
Merc too. He
right
made all the
here.
beats on your project too.
Very.
He made all the beats.
Wow, I can't
Minus
wait to
1 or
hear
2,
that.
but we put
I
it all
need
together.
to hear more.
Definitely.
This project is real
for
I
sure.
need to hear that,
Special.
baby. I need to get that on my playlist or
Hell
whatever.
yeah.
You know?
That's what's up. Appreciate you,
Beautiful.
man. Thank you. Thank you for
Wow.
listening. Thank you. Thank you. This is an honor right now. I'm rapping.
Oh, my God.
Freddy right now.
Yeah,
man.
that's
Come
it.
on,
Hey,
man. What you mean, bro? Oh, Lord, man. Thank you. My brother.
Yes, wicked.
Oh, man. Don't get no better than
Well,
this.
this has really been a blast. And this
sure.
guys are super. You guys are literally. I've done. You know, you guys are really super dialed in. All of y'all on everything. That's all you could ask for.
Thank you,
know?
man.
Especially
Thank you.
with my complex, convoluted past.
Hey,
Laying it out for y'all. And it's B Noble and it's Jungle Girl. Straight up, y'all. B-noble.com. The B Noble website with the whole story. And Jungle Girl. JUNGLEGURL. Jungle Girl. And she got some fly, her fashions, and these incredible pre-rolls that we rolling out.
Pull up to stage 1 and buy yours
Stage
today.
1, we got it right here. Stage 1 in full
Facts.
effect, y'all.
Yes, baby.
Yes,
Absolutely.
indeedy. Don't get it twisted.
DJing, MCing, graffiti, fashion, and breakdancing. Obviously, you know that's what they call the 5 elements of hip hop.
Okay.
People have opinions about the 6th element of hip hop, and in my opinion, I think it's journalism, telling the
Okay.
story of hip hop. What's your thoughts on that, and how important is journalism in hip hop?
Well, journalism is really important, particularly people from the scene getting to tell the stories. And once again, this is stuff that I'm covering and telling my story in my memoir as all these things amazingly came together. There was one of the first that did this well, that was a reflection of the scene, came from scene, a brother by the name of Barry Michael Cooper, who later would become a screenwriter and wrote the screenplay for New Jack City, which I was a producer on.
I wanted to talk to you about that.
He wrote the screenplay for Above the Rim and Sugar Hill. But Barry was from Harlem. He was nice with the words, and then he got hired to write at Spin Magazine and the Village Voice. But immediately when I read his articles, it was something about the way he put them sentences together. I was like, wait, this cat sound like he really, really know. And he did, and that's why the producer of New Jack City got him to write the screenplay. So journalism is very important. There would be other cats that would step up that would really have a voice on the page that you knew, this cat might really, he not just does he know, he writes with a sense like he was really there, hence a part of the community. And so that developed into the first wave of major hip hop journalists that would write for the Source magazine. So
photojournalism too.
Oh yeah, well,
and,
of course.
And video,
Yeah, photographers and dudes with the words.
Cameras.
Blew up. Some went on to do screenplays, and that became major films. The photographers blew up and became major guys that, in fact, I was a part of a book. I'm in it, and also as a creative director of the exhibits. It's called Contact High. It was the most comprehensive book of hip hop photography history from beginning to end, with all the major photographers and a lot of iconic images that you saw of Tupac with the Thug Life tattoo and this image and that image. They got the photographers to dig into their files and bring out the contact sheet. So you saw the photo, but then other stories that happened. So that became an exhibit. It's a coffee table book you can find, Contact High. And of course, the title is a play on what happens when you smoke weed and somebody that doesn't smoke gets high. That's a contact high. But it's also based on the contact sheets that photographers would get first. You'd get a contact sheet, pick the photos that would be printed. So anyway, you're right. The photojournalists, really important, that documented the culture, as well as those that could write about it with some official realness, was huge.
How important are those levels when creating art? Like, so you just like broke down that, how that whole, there was multiple levels to that, right?
No
there.
question.
To the word contact and why it was used and
Yeah.
Like, so how important is that in art creation to have those multiple entendres and levels so it can be seen from multiple angles and kind of.
I think it's if you can make that work well, then it's great. It's an extra added. Oh, and by the way, if you twist this around, it says that, or you look at it from this angle. All that's good. But if the overall piece is working, and then you got some additional residual little Easter eggs that go, oh shit. So that's dope if you can make it happen. But if you think in that way and understand how to come up with something which is catchy, which could have a sort of double entendre meaning, there's nothing wrong with that. For instance, once again, Be Noble is Bernard's name, Bernard Noble, but the Be Noble, we play off of be noble, be involved, be wise, be just. Be informed, and so we playing off of that in our marketing. That's why it's just that letter B and noble, and then the letter B and just, so we can bang our point home what our brand's about.
Right.
So like I like to say, we got a story to tell and great weed to sell, and that's part of how we tell that story.
Yeah.
And secondly, so we're in the beginning stages. I'm in the beginning stage of working on a documentary about the spaces of hip hop being the most powerful teaching tool for our community.
Oh wow!
And we learn everything from hip hop. We learn how to dance, how to dress, how to talk, good morals, bad morals, and it's the way it connects with our community. What do you think on hip hop being a powerful teaching tool?
Absolutely. Nah, come on. I always bring up the example. One of KRS-One's records, "You Must Learn." Where he breaks down all these black inventors. Lewis Latimer.
My uncle.
Who's that?
Lewis Latimer. Crazy. You just mentioned that.
That's who Thomas Edison was stealing from. What? Dude, damn, that's incredible.
That's your last name.
He was like, Lewis Latimer improved on Edison. Charles Drew did a lot for Edison. Garrett Morgan made the traffic light. Harriet Tubman freed the slaves a lot. I mean, KRS-One, I memorized that shit, and I was like, wait a minute, that's real. You see a lot more of it pop up in your timeline on IG, these black inventors that we weren't taught about, and so many more. And so, if you could put it in a rhyme, and it's done well, and done officially, and done right, it's an incredible tool that hasn't been fully utilized in the right way. Like, imagine somebody dope with the pen, Nas, KRS, whatever, just spitting, putting a whole lesson in a rhyme. The kids, you'd be like, what? I can't wait to memorize this and spit this back at you.
Definitely.
You know, so we could, it can be
teaching the fundamentals of the English language through rhymes, you know,
Man,
through,
listen.
you know, alliteration and,
Yeah.
and prose and all that type
Right.
of stuff, but like getting deep into that,
Yeah.
but using rap to do it.
But you got the key thing to not have it just, you know, be corny. You got to get somebody that can really put it together
Exactly.
with some
Yeah,
flavor.
yeah.
That's the
Absolutely.
thing.
Make
Yeah,
it dope.
people that have the intention to do it, but you be listening, and be like, oh man,
Yeah,
I didn't-
yeah.
that's-
Shout out Graf. I seen him in schools doing that shit.
Wow. See?
He's-
So it is-
and
it's
and that
amazing.
dude knows how to put words together. I don't know if
Yeah,
you know
sure.
Graf from Queens.
I know
He's
of him, but that's
yeah.
something that's still underutilized and can be put together in an official, effective way.
Right.
That would be transformative.
It'd be transformative.
Yeah.
Real quick, so you being around the great Jean-Michel, do you have a copy of Beat Bop, or do you have
Yeah.
any Jean-Michel artwork?
Yeah, the work I can't keep at the house because you know the shit got really extra crazy. People ask all the time. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can't leave this shit up in here. Nigga might try to run up in here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I might have to close
Nah,
my
for
joint
real,
and
though.
get crazy. Nah, but that shit is extra crazy. And I definitely have a copy of Beat Bop, thank God. And it's just beyond phenomenal. Once again, we was on a path to make shit happen. Nobody could predict that level. Once again, it's super crazy, unfortunate that he checked out so early. 27, my man left us. But everything that happens, I just smile and I think but it's sad. Like I don't, and you know, I wish he was here. Cause he's like, I'd be like, yo, homie, you see what's going on? How crazy is this shit? We used to laugh a lot, me and Jean, when we hang. We goof on shit, sneaking in the clubs, cause back then we was hanging with some lame at the door, wouldn't know that who we were, and so we stand out. We gonna get in here, and somebody would pull up, Fab, Jean, what are y'all doing outside? Come on in, and the doorman would feel like a jerk. Cause he fronted on us and we going in, you sucker, and get drink tickets and party. So, you know what I mean? We was super tight like that, planning, executing. So it's just beyond incredible the way it has kept on going for him. I'm just ecstatic for him, but I wish I could holler, yo, homie, you see that shit, B? I know you'd be like, wow. So anyway, that's my Jean-Michel vibe.
That's fine.
That's
See
amazing.
it blow up beyond expectation. It's just who the hell can make that up?
Do you keep that and pass it down through generations? I mean, probably, of course, but like your art collection is probably
Yeah, I
one
got
of
a
the
few
greatest,
things.
just from you being a part of it, being around Andy Warhol and all of them.
Yeah.
Is that something that you look at as an asset, or is that something like that you intentionally going to keep into your lineage?
Well, yeah, you know, you want to be able to keep. There's things that I've had to, you know, move around over the years. You know, that's part of what it's about. I do have things that I've kept. I've collected a lot of things, photography, this, that, and the third. And yeah, you know, you would want to, if you could have the ability to keep it, you would want to keep it. You know, among artists, what we typically would do was, if we like each other's work, we would trade with each other. Yo, I dig what you doing. You do, oh, well, shit, I give you this, you give me that. So that's how artists would do with each other. We trade with each other, just gift each other some shit that we made. You know, I'm gonna make a bunch of things to give to my people. It'd be a vibe like that. And then if your stuff develops crazy value, well, now you have another situation. So do you need to get rid of it, or can you hold on to it and pass it on to your loved ones or whatever? So it's an option that you have. I mean, I'll tell you a story that's kind of touching is, you know, Keith Haring, who I was close with, you know, he was gay, and then Keith developed AIDS early on, which was like, oh my God. And so he left me in his will, and what he left in the will was a portrait he did of me on an orange Day-Glo piece of paper. If you Google it, it'll come up. You Google my name and Keith Haring, it'll come up. And
so many flexes in this. So many subtle flexes in this. It's so amazing. It's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yo, honestly,
yeah, and so
Wow.
it's crazy. Like, you know, it was heavy, shocking, and heroic that he went public with it at a time when people was really not going public, because a couple of high-profile people had died, like Rock Hudson and whatever, and it was like, oh my God. But Keith was so compelled to, like, dude, we got to raise awareness about this, because people in power wasn't trying to help people. They wasn't trying to acknowledge it. They was trying to say it was coming from Haiti. It was a black thing. It was just crazy bullshit around this thing that was affecting all different kinds of people. Keith said, I want to go public so I can help use my profile to raise more awareness, which is super incredible. So he went public in a Rolling Stone article. Then he began to show up at demonstrations and shit like that, raising awareness. And then sadly, Keith passed, but not more than 2 years after he passed, Magic Johnson has it, but he was able to hook up with the cocktail of drugs. Like, when we think of Magic Johnson, we don't even think of him having that no more. It's so normalized. His life is going on in him. I sadly think that my man Keith, his paper was right. He would have had that same situation, but it didn't happen for him. But so I think of him, he was a real stand-up dude, you know? I learned a lot. I didn't have gay friends until I'm hanging with this cat. I realized he was gay. I'm like, wow, that's wild, but that's my boy. Okay, so me and you still rocking, but God damn, that's different, you know? So learn different things, moving around and meeting different kinds of people and whatever, you know, and then becoming friends.
Nah, but that's definitely an inspiration too, to see how many circles you're just comfortable moving in, and that's not always easy, you know what I mean? Transitioning between social circles and
That's
just
true. That's a good, very observant.
And being able to just kind of move in there and be like, oh, hey man, I fit in here. Like, we're cool.
So that's
You're
great
cool,
that you
I'm
brought
cool.
that up. I think I showcased this in my book a little bit. So my mom wanted me to have more of a diverse situation. So there was a high school I applied to. I didn't really get accepted to. It was the flyest, newest school at the time. It's called John Dewey at the time in New York City. And it was one of the prestigious top-level schools. So when I remember first applying, I didn't get accepted. But then suddenly, you turn around, I got accepted. People was like, you going to Dewey? I'm like, nigga, fuck you. Yeah, I'm going to Dewey. You know, I got in. I'm like, they must have reevaluated my shit. Years later, my mother told me that she went to the school and put on a whole, you know, my mom's was nice with the game, and she gave a whole story and put some emotion into it to give me a shot. And she convinced them. So my mom wanted me to be in a diverse environment with all different kind of kids. You know, obviously I grew up in an all-black neighborhood, but going to John Dewey was a very diverse school. So at first I was on some wild hood shit, to be honest with you, but then I got curious about different sets and different groups in school, you know, the nerdy crew, you know, the black party crew, you know, the sports heads. I began to move around different heads and just got, you know, comfortable hanging with different types of people. And that was very beneficial because when I made moves into the downtown scene, which was, even though it was super duper ultra counterculture, it was predominantly white. But these were people that decidedly were on some different outcasts, spike hair, way before any of this shit was cool. These people was looked at as like, you're the worst. Like the way some people look at people of color. But being in that scene, everybody was cool. Even though myself, Jean-Michel, was some of the few black people making moves, the people was open to different things. So I was able to, but I think back and have thought back, like if my mom hadn't got me to that high school, it would have been maybe a more difficult transition to be able to be comfortable and interact with various types of people. So that definitely was,
you know,
thank my mom for that.
That's what's up. But being able to just, you know,
Yes,
point out
indeed.
that being able to move in different circles and interact with different people and be a, you know, it's beneficial.
It is beneficial because that's the world. You know,
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
the
the
world.
same way. Because of that, I was early on getting to travel. Like when I put the whole shit together, what me and my man Lee Quinones was doing as visual artists, coming from the graffiti world, and then we got some press and some. Then our first art show was in Rome with a very prestigious gallery. So we flying around. I barely been out of New York State. And we going to Rome, me and my man, who definitely hadn't been out of New York State. So we running around Rome. I got a boom box, I'm playing wild shit. And they showing my work in a super prestigious gallery. And I'm comfortable, like, you know, I want to eat what Italians eat. You know, when I go to France, the same thing. A lot of other hip hop heads was like, man, I ain't eating this shit. I'm only going to McDonald's. It was the first wave of dudes that got to travel. I'm like, oh man, these kids don't know. Hopefully they'll figure this shit out, man. Live a little, enjoy this shit.
Enjoy this shit. Get in the culture,
know,
man.
taste the wine.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that was really a great question, and yeah, man, I would love being around any kind of people figuring it out. I got questions, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I want to know what y'all doing. What's going on over here?
I got a question for you real quick.
Okay.
The word marijuana you talk about in your documentary, was created to sound racist. To sound like
Correct. To make it sound Spanish, because, yeah.
Do you think that we should stop using that word?
I don't use it at all. And most of the
I haven't
people
used
that I
it
mess
in
with only say cannabis. Or we refer to it as the flower, the plant, cannabis, whatever. You rarely hear that from people embedded. Like I haven't heard him say it, whatever. But then when you hear these lame politicians, they are still using that old language. It's like, dude, don't y'all know? This is it's a reflection of too much of our leadership is basically very analog when things are moving at a digital pace. And if you understand that marijuana, but everybody hasn't gotten that history. Hopefully more people will know. But it's problematic when you learn that it was pretty much put in place for essentially racist reasons. But it didn't even exist, and so once again, it's part of the bullshit that we have to
overcome. Great question.
Reprogram and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, hey man, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. You've already been so generous with it, and your stories are incredible. I'm like over here just in like awe, like the whole time of just So thank you so much for sharing all that with us, and you bridge the gap between music and cannabis, like in fashion and art, the way no one else possibly could. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
It's been great doing this too, man. You guys have some of the best questions. I appreciate that more than anything. People that really have great stuff to, oh my God, this guy. It really makes it all work for me.
Strive for that, man. So
absolutely.
It means the most hearing that from you, dude.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So all you people local, it's close. There's no Stage 1 is the #1 cannabis spot up in this region.
Hey.
Come on through, y'all. Pull up. Check out that B Noble, that flower, them pre-rolls, and his Jungle Girl. For all you ladies, get with the program, honey. And like we like to say, it's made for the ladies, but he can get some too. You know?
Seriously, man. Stage 1 podcast, Stoop to Store, Legacy to Legal. One more time for Fat Bob. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. This was dope. I love doing this.
Awesome.
I be on that OG, fire by the OG, piling up the roaches, got me feeling rosy.